I have to admit, looks very, very dystopian right now, and a lot of people are despairing. Wondering when is this horror show going to end? And you know, there is a lot that is going on behind the scenes that I cannot talk about. But let's just see if we start. Some very prominent people start. But there is a lot of fighting going on behind the scenes, and in a sign that this horror show is going to end, we have seen the Epstein files dumped. For example, if you look at this one, I was told by military intelligence this is Stephen Colbert with a young child, and that is a very sanitized video. They haven't released the ones, but they exist because that's how these people operate, and this is beyond any doubt. And we're now also starting to get from the Department of Justice document release testimony about the fake Donald Trump. Uh, Remember, the real Donald Trump is 6'3" tall or 190 centimeters, appears with Melania. He has not been seen since June. And this Trump does not have skeletons in his closet, but they've had a fake Trump for a long time, and this one does. And that's coming out, as you can see from these two videos. A lot more is going to come out, I guarantee you. I've been told by members of the British royal family. This is all going to come out, and you can tell there are signs that it really is ending. For example, Russian intelligence is reporting that all the members of the Ukrainian government have sent their money and families overseas, and they're asking various embassies for shelter and protection because they know they're not going to be able to stay in Ukraine. But there's basically nowhere on earth they're going to be able to go. Now, the other thing that's happening is the government of Israel is offering a huge amounts of money to airlines to start direct flights from Tel Aviv to Argentina. This means a lot of prominent Israelis are hoping to flee to Argentina, and they don't want the plane stopping at another country on the way because they know they'll get arrested. They think that the 1,000 miles of coastline they bought in Patagonia and the underground facilities there will allow them to escape justice. But no, there's nowhere on earth these people are going to be able to hide. We're going to go after them. We're going to make sure it's finished. And at the same time, these people are so desperate, they're cracking down in ways that are just hard to imagine. For example, watch this video of someone being arrested in the UK for calling someone a carpet muncher. This is a sign of a failed regime. When they are, arresting people for saying something like carpet muncher, but they're not arresting people for torture. There's something very wrong, and this is not going to last. But if you are in the military, you need to take personal action. We are allowed to arrest these people. Any one of us, anyone watching there, if you see one of these people on the street in public, you're allowed to make a citizen's arrest, and that can be proven in any court. And if they resist arrest, you're allowed to use necessary force. Now, another sign that this really is going to end this time is that a Dutch court has ordered Alec Bourla of Pfizer and Bill Gates to testify about. This is important because the International Court of Justice is in Holland and the military will enforce their rulings. So we really are going to go after these people. Now, the other thing, of course, is we need to do something about this reality TV show that is pretending to be the U.S. government. I was contacted by Dr. William Mount. I haven't heard from him in a while, but he told me that Washington, D.C. has been abandoned, and the entire horror show you're watching of the so-called Trump government is run out of Florida. They're not going to last much longer, but it would be nice to send special forces into Mar-a-Lago and arrest these actors and secret handlers like Leo Zagami and put an end to this show. And I know the P3 and the P2 Freemasons are getting desperate because they've been sending me uh, emails or saying that threatening nuclear war. That means they've run out of cards. Their fake dollar machine is not working. Their control of the narrative, even though they're censoring like I've never seen before, they've shut down so many sites, and they've arrested military commentators. But it's not going to be enough. There's too many of us, and this is not going to be allowed to continue. And the censorship is also covering up genocides in places like Sudan, where the United Arab Emirates, which is another rogue state that needs to be dealt with, and for some reason people don't want to talk about it, but it has to be talked about. It's not just Gaza. Okay, these criminals have to have nowhere on earth to shelter, and the Russians and the Chinese need to enforce this. Of course, Russia has its own problem. Their government is heavily infiltrated by Chabad and the Satanists, and they need to carry out a purge of their own. And one name I'd like to suggest is Kirill Dmitriev, the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund. His public statements make it clear he's a compromised Chabad agent, and I would recommend to the Russians that they take him in for questioning. But in any case, the other thing that's happening is that there's been a very blatant attempt to suppress Christianity in the United States, and the so-called White House now does not allow a Christmas tree, but they do have a menorah, and they celebrate Hanukkah, which is commemorates a genocide, and that's wrong. And the real Jewish people, need to do something about that, and they will. The Jewish people are about to be liberated from this satanic cult that has taken over their leadership. And now I've also been told by Mossad agents that the massacre at Bondi Beach in Australia was carried out. The people who did it, their last name was Cohen. They're Mossad agents, so they can justify a crackdown on anti-Semitism, which is really anti-Satanism. Okay, it's nothing to do with Jews. But people are very, very angry, and even though it's not being reported, the governments in Europe are falling. Take a look at these demonstrations in Holland, for example. That sort of thing is being seen not just in Holland, but all over Europe. The farmers are shutting down governments because the governments have been trying to put farmers out of business so that they can create a starvation crisis and control the food supply. But it's simply not going to work. So in the new year, in the 2026, we hope we're going to do everything possible, and I personally am going to take personal action in ways that I can here in Japan. And I've been in touch with police and military types and political types, and the government of Takaichi Sanae is not going to be allowed to last because she's been trying to give Japanese tax money to the openly Nazi, and that has marked her as no good. So something will happen here. Again, we can't talk about all the details, but we all need to take action. Enough is enough. The horror show has to end. Let me just check my notes, see if there's anything else.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. As you wrote in this week's report, Japan is also on the warpath. I hope Japan gains independence from the U.S. and nationalizes the BOJ, but war is bad. Please provide more information that you can tell us on how the war in Japan will play out to your expectations.
Well, Japan is saying now openly that they have to have their own nuclear weapons. And the reason why they're saying this is because the Khazarian mafia has been trying to get money from the Chinese by selling Japan to them. But Japan has always been an independent country, and they realize that they're going to have to fight for their own independence. But what's going to happen is that there's going to have to be some kind of negotiations because the situation that has existed since the end of World War II is no longer tenable. The Korean Peninsula needs to be united. Taiwan and China need to be reunited in a way that gives Taiwan real power in China. And all these artificial divisions getting the Asians to fight each other must be ended. So there will be big changes because the current structure is untenable. And I believe the Japanese government will become very friendly with North Korea in the new year. But there's not going to be any major war. I've talked to people in the societies, Asian secret societies. They say there may be some small fighting, but no all-out war. Next question.
Hi, Ben. There was no autopsy report or death certificate yet for Charlie Kirk, but it is seemingly illegal to fake a death certificate. Do you think that Charlie Kirk is actually dead? And what about that comments that Kash Patel made about seeing Charlie Kirk in Valhalla? Kash certainly isn't a Viking, and it turns out there is an island named Valhalla in St. George Island, Florida.
Look, the Charlie Kirk thing is just so fake that I've kind of tuned out because they're trying to keep our eyeballs on this show with Erica Turk and then these events, and they're trying to distract us. But as far as Kash Patel is concerned, he's clearly not been either compromised or replaced by a fake because he's now opposed to releasing the Trump files. Now he says that America's number one priority should be Israel. Uh, Kash Patel needs to be arrested, pure and simple, along with Pam Bondi. And it's going to have to be the people within the Justice Department, FBI, to do that. And they're legally entitled because they have broken the law and need to be arrested. That's what we need to do. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Any chance you can comment further on the sharp rise in prices of metals and what it means for fiat currencies and the global financial system? Also, do you concur with Brink's and others that the sharp rise in silver and platinum indicate shortages in physical metal and that the world is running out of these metals relative to demand? Do you see the U.S. and other countries going digital or back to gold and silver standard, or somehow a combination of both?
Well, my understanding is that at the very highest levels of global finance, they don't accept money. They only accept precious metals. And what's happened is the West has run out of its own gold stocks. There are multiple reports that the vaults in Switzerland are empty. And but the thing people need to understand is that um, there is lots and lots of gold. I was contacted by an Iranian source who said they just discovered. Again, I'm just telling you the number they told me. It's kind of mind-boggling, but 61 million tons of gold. But you see, most of the gold has been blacklisted by the Western financial system because if they monetize it, then they lose control over the international financial system. So most of that gold is blacklisted. So what's happening is the people who control the Western financial printing press have jacked up the price of gold that they accept in order to try to lure people into selling their jewelry and stuff, so they can have more gold to hand over to the Asians. But uh, you know, they're not going to get enough, so they're going to keep trying to jack up the price. And I don't think it's too late to buy gold. I think you should do it if you can. Same with silver and platinum and copper. Anything real. Basically, buy stuff that actually exists as soon as you can. Because some kind of financial black swan is going to happen for sure. Next question.
Hi, Ben. To say the Venezuela conflict for us is just to get their oil, in my opinion, is quite naive. We don't need their oil, but there is an embargo to keep them from sending it to China. The narco-terrorist, communist dictator, and his communist predecessor ruined the most prosperous Latin American country. They have turned it into a dangerous. Trump wants the people there to benefit from their vast oil reserves, in my opinion, and have a president fairly elected by the Venezuelan people. Also, Maduro is the head of all of the narcotic syndicates in the Americas. The deep state, CIA, China, I believe, are behind this. The trade includes gun running and human trafficking. Venezuela has also been a pivotal partner in computerized voting machine theft involving China, Cuba, Iran, and Serbia. They have been stealing elections in 72 countries, including ours, for about 20 years. What are your thoughts on this, and how would you remedy it?
Uh, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency and other actual U.S. agencies have long said that Venezuela is not involved in the drug trade. And right now, American oil companies are operating inside Venezuela. So I think a lot of what you just told me is some kind of fake story trying to distract people from the real problem. Okay? The elections in the West are being stolen not by Venezuela or Serbia, it's by Israel. Okay? And that's where you need to look. So I need to, actually personally go to Venezuela to see for myself, but I sincerely doubt that they're starving or anything like that. But I just don't know. I'd have to go there myself because there's so much fake information out there now. It's really hard to get to the truth. But I'll try to find out more. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. What are your thoughts on the recent Epstein files that were apparently released in a PDF form and are now able to be unredacted? Do you think that this is a psyops in itself? In my opinion, there's no way the government that runs all sorts of psyopses around the world accidentally releases redacted files in a form that could be reversed and read. Or are you thinking that this could be white hat sabotage from the inside of the deep state?
Uh, it could just be sheer incompetence. It could also be white hat sabotage. But there is definitely an aspect of trying to distract us because they're saying they've got a million files. They're trying to overwhelm us. Uh, all we need to really see is videos of people like Bernie Sanders and then arresting these people. And these files are still being hidden. But enough has come out that, and because it's coming from the Justice Department, that arrests can be made and they need to be made. And everybody who is in a position, if you're military police, FBI, any law enforcement agency, you need to take personal action and start arresting these people. Enough is enough. We need to end this horror show. And the real key is to take control of the money printing machine away from people like Jean-Michel de Rothschild and other hidden handlers, uh, because that would end their show overnight. And that's what we're going to try to do in the new year. Okay, well, hope to see you next week and next year. Have a merry, happy New Year. I've ever seen in the English media sphere, including a lot of the so-called alternative media. The big thing, of course, was the so-called emergency speech made by Donald Trump on Wednesday. Uh, Tucker Carlson was told by a member of Congress that he was going to declare war. And before that, Trump posted that he was going to stop all the flows of Venezuelan oil. Before that, he said he was going to close Venezuelan airspace. Well, neither of these things happened because the military has figured out that the Trump, what we're seeing on our screens and in these White House press briefings, is not Donald Trump. He's a fake. He's not their commander in chief. And the proof is that he was unable to declare war, even though he had told members of Congress that that is what he was going to do. This is a huge development. It shows that something big is going to happen. And of course, the real reason Trump was going to declare war is because he needed to use the War Emergencies Act to prevent the release of the Epstein files, which is due for December 20th. Well, we'll see if that happens. Uh, but when you actually listen to his speech, he talks about $18 trillion that he's gotten. Well, from his tariffs and from promises of investments. Well, in the 11 months, what actually happened is he got $236 billion in tariffs, which is basically a tax on American citizens. And that's not anywhere even a fraction of what they need to stop the United States from going bankrupt, we'll see what happens. But it's definitely looking very terminal for this fake show. But I think things are going to happen in the EU first, because there is a full-blown revolution going on there that it once again is not going to be televised until it's really over. But the big thing that's going on in Europe now is that farmers across the continent are revolting, because basically what's going on is the Khazarian mafia is trying to bankrupt farmers through various forms of legislation in order to seize their land. And the farmers have broken into EU headquarters, and they've shut down London, and they're protesting in Greece, France, everywhere. Watch these next 3 video clips to see how intense that is. Okay, you can see from the videos that the police are running away. They're unable to do anything about it. And in what I posted in my weekly report on Monday, you can see that the tanks that were sent in London to suppress the farmers actually sided with the farmers. So this is going to, get more intense. And already, again, this is not being reported in the West, but the government of Bulgaria has fallen because they were going to try to impose the euro on their citizens, and mass protests, put a kibosh on that. And another huge news item that is nowhere in the Western press is that Gerhard Schroeder, the former Prime Minister, Chancellor of Germany, went on German TV, and he said that in 2018, the current Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, was summoned to the 44th floor of Black Rock Tower, and he was told by Larry Fink that Germany had to stop buying cheap oil and gas from Russia and had to buy expensive oil and gas from America. The result is that German industry has fallen by 20% since 2018. And for example, Volkswagen just closed a factory that had been running for 88 years. They're destroying Germany, and they've reached a point where the Germans are in revolt. So this is happening everywhere, and it's not going to get better. They're not going to stay in power. Now, Ursula von der Leyen has already had most of her former colleagues arrested in the Ukrainian corruption scandal, and the dragnet is closing in on her. She's trying to steal Russian assets in order to prevent the bankruptcy of the EU, but the Russians have said they're going to go after anybody who does that. They've publicly said it, and I'm assuming they're going to, take physical action, although, the task reports talk about all legal means. Watching the end of a very ancient regime, and they're running out of tools. Like I say, they put in a fake Trump, but his actions, reveal that he is not the commander-in-chief who was elected by the American people to drain the swamp. He's a fake replacement. And they do that with all sorts of people. It's pretty clear, for example, that Kash Patel, who we're seeing on our screens, is not the Kash Patel who was promising a couple of years ago to release the Epstein files. Instead, they replaced him with a fake, and the rank and file are revolting. They're no longer being able to, you elect a leader to do something, and then he's replaced with somebody who does the opposite, and people are sick and tired of that. They're not going to allow it to continue. And the other thing that people need to understand is that the only thing that is stopping the European people from becoming Chinese Communist Party slaves is Russia. In China now, huge numbers of people are homeless because they have been cut out of the digital currency because their social credit score was too low. And now they're homeless, living on the streets. That's the sort of future they were going to impose on us unless we do something about them. And here's some news that it's an exclusive to this podcast, which is, and it's huge as far as I'm concerned, Russian troops are fighting Chinese troops in Thailand and Cambodia. I was looking at, I was trying to figure out what was going on with these clashes between Cambodia and Thailand. It just didn't make sense. And so I asked some Thai royals and some military intelligence in the region. And what they say is what's happening is China is trying to take over Cambodia and build a big deep water port there. And the Russians are trying to stop them. The Russians have made an alliance with all the countries around China. So North Korea, Mongolia, India, Vietnam, etc., and now apparently Thailand, so that they all agree that it will ally and fight together to prevent Chinese expansionism. And the only force that is able to militarily prevent China from moving all the way to Spain is Russia. So these idiots in the so-called coalition of the willing, who are still trying to destroy Russia, are the enemies of the European people. And let's make it clear, there's a few people we need to get rid of in order to finish this nightmare that we're all going through. These are, of course, Larry Fink, Bill Gates, the fake Trump, Ursula von der Leyen, Keir Starmer of the UK, Friedrich Merz of Germany, and then, of course, Jean-Michel de Rothschild, who's cross-dressing and pretending to be Brigitte Macron. The usual suspects. We need to round these people up and make them face charges, war crimes charges. And these are worse war crimes, I would say, than even World War II. For example, a recent opinion poll of Americans found out that, and that's 68% of Americans. So this is a mass poisoning. This is not something that you get a slap on the wrist over. No, this is something you get hung for, okay? And that's the sort of thing we need to do. And we also, need to make sure they don't get away with replacing leaders with fakes anymore. And these are not clones, okay? They're people who are selected because they look similar. They're given plastic surgery. They're trained to mimic, and then they use computer graphics, and they can be identified through DNA testing. So we also need to make sure that the fake King Charles is removed, and most importantly, we need to take away control of their magic money printing machine, because that's the source of their power. I'm just going to check my notes to see if I have something I've missed. Oh yeah, another huge news item that is not being reported by Drudge or anywhere else is the massive flooding in the northwest of the United States. 3 states are completely underwater. This appears to be some sort of weather warfare attack. I'm going to try to find out what the motives are, but it's clearly not a natural event. Take a look at this video to see. Some sort of major turning point. People are waking up en masse, and especially in the military and the intelligence community, understand that Western civilization will collapse unless we throw out these Khazarian mafia criminals. And of course, that means Benjamin Netanyahu has to go, and we need to get the Egyptian military and the Turkish military to move into Israel and clean up that nest and restore the nation state of Judea, which will be multicultural and multinational. Another thing I'd like to point out is I didn't want to celebrate Hanukkah because that is a holiday that actually represents the mass murder of assimilated Jews, and I do not go along with this. However, I do wish to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And people need to understand that the Bible does not say when Jesus Christ was born. So what they did was they took the old solar New Year and replaced it with Jesus Christ. But the fact is that in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun keeps setting further north every day until the 21st of December. And then for 3 days, it appears to set in the same place. And then on December 25th, it starts to move south again. The days start getting longer. So this is a solar New Year. We all live under the same sun, and I think we can all celebrate this holiday, even if you're not Christian. So Merry Christmas and Happy Solar New Year to everybody. And I hope to see you again next week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. After watching Trump's December 17th televised address, many people expected something more consequential, but instead saw a tightly scripted, humorless, and usually self-focused delivery that felt more like an imitation of Trump than his typical presence. Some viewers even noted inconsistencies in physical cues such as height and presence, which led to speculate about whether the speaker was actually Trump or possibly a stand-in. At the same time, this address coincided with the renewed signaling around the election case and a period of extreme weather events across the country. From your perspective, do you see any legitimacy in the speculation about the authenticity of the appearance, or in the idea that the timing and tone of the speech surrounding the events were part of a coordinated narrative or psychological operation?
As I mentioned in my talk, the Khazarian mafia was hoping to use their bought and paid Congress and their fake Trump, and he's obviously fake. Just use your own eyes. Compare the different pictures. Look at the height. They were hoping to fool the military into declaring war in order to prevent themselves from being arrested for war crimes, and it failed. So he wasn't able to declare war, which was the plan. Instead, he repeated these lies about $18 trillion. And by the way, as an example of these lies, okay, he came to Japan and said he's going to get $550 billion. Well, 3 months later or 2 months later, he's got exactly zero. The same thing with South Korea. So he's not getting, the world is not going to invest $18 trillion in this crime syndicate. They want to pull the plug on them. And their fake Trump is no longer fooling very many people. This whole thing is coming to a crash. And that speech, I think, was a sign of that. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Have there been any significant political or security developments unfolding in South Africa that have not been adequately covered in mainstream reporting?
Well, I don't know about South Africa, but the big thing in Africa is that they have cut themselves off from the Western financial system. Muammar Gaddafi of Libya was the first, because he tried to do this by having a gold-backed African currency to get away from the U.S. dollar and the Khazarian mafia financial system. Well, now they've done it. They've announced their own financial system, and that means Africa is no longer going to be raped for its resources. And I don't normally give investment advice, but I'd say getting in Africa now would be like getting in on ground zero in China back in the day, and I'd highly recommend it. But of course, due diligence, as always, is required. Next question.
And with the newly passed U.S. defense authorization bill including limiting funding for Ukraine, which was far less than previous levels, how do you assess the sustainability of Western support for Ukraine and the likely long-term outcome of the war?
Well, the Ukraine war was a genocide against the Ukrainian people. The idea was to remove the Russian and other peoples from the Ukraine and make a new homeland for the Ashkenazi Jews, the revival of the Khazarian Empire. So, for example, Wagner, remember all these reports about Ukraine fighting Wagner? Well, it was the same people. Zelensky and Wagner worked together. Zelensky would grab Ukrainian men off the streets, they send them to a certain area, and then they tell Wagner where they were, and Wagner would kill them with artillery. So this was always about a mass bribery campaign, using money that was supposed to go to Ukraine to bribe politicians in the West, as well as a genocide against the Ukrainian people. And it was not, but it was also an attempt to destroy Russia. The whole thing is blowing up in their faces, and they're not going to get away with this. They're going to face war crimes trials. The whole thing is ending. And Zelensky, he's not there. He's just a TV thing in the West. Next question.
Hi, Ben. The Donald Trump administration has just ordered a naval blockade on sanctioned oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela. Given this, do you think this move signals a real shift in global oil geopolitics, or is it merely a bluff tied to election case pressure?
Well, he was trying to start a war with Venezuela, but the Russians and the Chinese read the riot act to the American military, and the American military are now working with the Russians and the Chinese. So no, it failed. Okay, it was an attempt to avoid bankruptcy by stealing Venezuelan oil, as well as an attempt to avoid Epstein file release by declaring war, and it's failing. It's failed. Next question.
Ivan, we have our last question for today. With the European Union facing increasing internal strain from farmers' protests, rising energy costs, growing resistance to climate regulations, and the continued decentralization of power in Brussels despite national pushback, do you see the EU entering a phase of managed decline? And do you believe this is actually steering that process behind the scenes? Or who do you believe is steering the process?
I don't think it's going to be managed decline. I think these people are going to fight, to the end, because they know that they're actual Nazis and they know they're going to face war crimes. So I didn't post a clip, but I was sent one of Ursula von der Leyen saying she's going to stay in the EU headquarters until they got money for Ukraine. Well, they're not going to get that money, so hopefully she'll stay in there until she's arrested. But I think the EU is coming to an end. I don't want to be caught on timing, but mathematically and financially, they are doomed. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in, and next podcast will be after Christmas, so Merry Christmas.
Hello, Patriots. I'm at Restored Republic via a GCR compiled by Judy Byington. Imminent EBS, martial law, 10 days of communication darkness for global currency reset to gold asset-backed currencies of 209 nations. FBI, Obama established a shadow government to sabotage Constitution. America, Democratic Socialists pledge allegiance to Chinese Communist Party. There it is. Judy note, it's imminent. Global emergency broadcast system activation under martial law for a 3-day event and then 10 days of communication darkness, while 8 billion people in all banks across the globe complete a global currency reset to gold asset-backed currencies. Temporary martial law alert, expect a global blackout and emergency broadcast system EBS activation. Military units have been mobilizing worldwide for a coordinated strike to destroy the globalist power structure in the greatest sting operation ever. Every cell phone on the planet will be hit, with 7 trumpet sounds transmitted from the Starlink satellites, bypassing the elite-controlled media channels. Afterward, normal communication will cease for 10 days, while truthful documentaries take over the airways to explain what's going on. 10 days of communication darkness. Shutdowns will occur, but only in certain areas. Banks will close, ATMs and credit cards will stop working. You'll need at least 3 weeks of food and water. If you're unprepared, don't worry. The military will supply what you need. Non-stop education will be broadcast, teaching about the true principles of freedom and justice. The Alliance has spent years preparing for this announcement, quietly building a network of satellites and secure communication lines. Over it, President Trump will give 7 messages to the world about a new era of freedom about to begin. Why? Because over 500,000 arrests of treasonous pedophile deep state globalists were in the process of being made worldwide by Trump's global military alliance. For many years, these criminals have had control of the global financial system and have slowly been taking away our freedoms in line with their New World Order Depopulation Agenda 2030. They felt it their right to rule the world and everyone in it. The Global Alliance did not like that idea. They had been forming a plan to end the sale since the Lincoln assassination. Trump had been selected to head that endeavor. His global military alliance had been seriously working on that plan since before his 2016 inauguration. Key to that cabal takeover was the global currency reset of 209 nations that gave the people's taxpayer monies back to the people. On Sunday, August 23, 2026, the new gold asset-backed quantum financial system of 209 nations was set to go live. It's the dawn of financial transparency, accountability, and freedom from cabal control. Obama quietly established a shadow government of radicals to sabotage Donald Trump, the American people, and the Constitution. According to Edward Snowden, through a 501c4 to hide their donors, the Organizing for Action Obama Foundation and DNC network of criminals consisted of over 32,000 radicals with 25,000 more in training. The Senior Executive Service, created under Carter, was weaponized under Obama. In December 2015, Obama's one single executive order turned 8,000 civilian generals into a stay-behind army and replaced 6,000 plus of them with Obama deep state loyalists. Radicals were embedded all over the country to cause chaos. Joining them were some of the leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities. This created a shadow globalist deep state cabal with Obama at the top to take down Trump and the United States itself. Monday, August 10th, 2026. Not only are Democratic Socialists of America members taking a pledge to the Chinese Communist Party, but they are flown over and treated like royalty in China. All of them should be forced to renounce their citizenship. Senator Jim Banks, this is what they want to do to America. Turn it into communist China. This letter by the leadership of DSA makes that very clear. They stand with socialist communist China, and they want the rest of the world to take a page from China's playbook and become that. Trump was also taking down the left's mass protest funding networks in Cuba, where he had just increased CIA operations and was not ruling out military operations. Marco Rubio confirmed Cuba's funding NGOs, organizing mass protests.
On Sunday, the 22nd of November 2026, the new ISO 20022 international banking standards will go into full effect on this 63rd anniversary of the assassination of U.S. President. When combined with Basel III and Project Aurora, they will make it almost impossible to hide dark money anywhere in the world that matters. Many people think that Kennedy was killed because he signed Executive Order 11,110, which told the U.S. Treasury to avoid the Federal Reserve monetary system and make new money using fixed amounts of U.S. stockpiled silver. This step would have almost certainly caused a huge economic chain reaction around the world that would have brought down the whole European-based central banking empire. Tier 4B ISO 200.
Monday, August 10th. Quantum financial system goes live. Cabal wealth seized. Global currency reset in motion. Quantum satellites and military guarded nodes secure the greatest financial revolution of our time. The quantum financial system is no longer in testing. It's here, actively running, exposing and recording every elite move as it rolls out globally. The countdown to full-scale launch has begun, and with it, the world's financial landscape is about to change forever. Transition to the new financial system. Sunday, August 9th, global financial reset and asset seizure underway following recent tribunal disclosures. Tier 4B ISO 20 emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to the exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London, and New York are under direct audit as authorities unwind decades of illicit funding used to sustain global operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates, and pharmaceutical fronts are facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system is accelerating, backed by asset-based currencies designed to eliminate debt-based manipulation. Old banking rails are being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts are scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, transaction ledgers, and digital forensics will be released simultaneously globally to ensure full transparency. This is the systematic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity is collapsing. Stay informed and verify all updates through secure channels.
QFS deployment updates since the start of the year. QFS has been in beta trials within select regions aligned against the global cabal. These test areas now experience instant, secure transactions bypassing traditional banking, feeding data into the quantum ledger that's invulnerable and transparent. Over 100 million real-time transactions daily pass through QFS, each transaction documented and tracked within the world's most secure ledger. Quantum satellites guarding the revolution. 13 quantum satellites, guarded by military alliances, now secure QFS's global network. These satellites, far beyond mainstream agencies like NASA, are developed by classified military contractors and form an unbreakable connection that shields data from hacking. Each transaction is encrypted, every byte safeguarded, ensuring zero vulnerability. Operation Dark Mirror, exposing corruption. Operation Dark Mirror uses QFS to map out corrupt networks in the traditional banking system. Every shadow account, offshore haven, and illicit transfer tied to human trafficking or drug smuggling is now cataloged in real time. High-profile arrests across Europe and Asia have already quietly traced back to QFS data, and these are just the beginning. A permanent record now exists that corrupt elites can't erase, hide, or manipulate. Banks in turmoil. System glitches as QFS interferes. Since mid-July 2026, banks in key regions report technical glitches with frozen transactions and fluctuating balances. These are no random errors. They're the first signs of QFS challenging traditional banking. As QFS runs parallel to legacy systems, it exposes every inconsistency, revealing fraudulent transfers and artificial inflation schemes. The cabal's banks are scrambling, terrified by QFS's presence, which audits every move and shines a light on embezzled funds and manufactured scarcity. Countdown to Global Currency Reset (GCR). The Global Currency Reset (GCR) is on the horizon, bringing an asset-backed currency to replace fiat. Governments are already liquidating gold reserves into QFS, preparing for the largest wealth transition in history. Once this reset completes, fiat currencies will be worthless, replaced by an incorruptible system. Military oversight. Final preparations for QFS rollout. Military forces worldwide are securing key QFS nodes and testing sites, ensuring the system remains uncompromised. August 2026 marks a pivotal month, with special ops safeguarding regional hubs. This presence shows the stakes. If QFS fails, the cabal regains control, but with soldiers securing these hubs, the elite's last vestiges of power crumble. Prepare yourself. The storm will break with QFS. From Sun. 23 Aug. 2026, the QFS is no longer a test. It's the dawn of transparency, accountability, and freedom from cabal control. The countdown has begun, and there's nowhere left for the elites to hide. The quantum financial system is here to end every lie and deception ever used. The four portals of the quantum financial system, QFS, USA, European, UK, and Asia-Africa-Australia portals, are set to connect and transform the world. Discover how these portals will bring transparency, asset-backed currencies, and global financial freedom, ending deep state control. The quantum financial system, QFS, is here, set to forever change how the world handles money. The era of corrupt financial practices, hidden transactions, and deep state manipulation is coming to an end. The QFS promises transparency, security, and direct control over personal finances. The system operates through its four portals, gateways connecting the world's financial networks. This isn't just another financial overhaul, it's a transformation of the global economy. The four portals of the QFS connect continents and bring financial autonomy to millions. 1. USA Portal, the lifeblood of the Americas. Covering North, Central, and South America, the USA Portal ensures connection to the QFS across the Western Hemisphere. The introduction of the US note, USN, an asset-backed currency tied to gold and silver, replaces the corrupt system centered around the US dollar. With this shift, the Federal Reserve's control over the American economy ends, marking the collapse of the fiat system. Impact on everyday people. The USA Portal will empower citizens from Canada to Chile with direct access to their wealth, free from bank manipulation. This portal brings unprecedented stability through the USN, an asset-backed currency providing financial sovereignty across the continent. 2. European Portal, reclaiming financial sovereignty. Breaking free from the euro, the European portal allows countries like Spain, Italy, France, and Germany to reclaim financial independence. Each nation will issue its own QFS-linked currency backed by assets, ensuring the end of financial manipulation. A united, yet independent Europe. Under the QFS, each country will manage its economy independently while retaining transparency and security. This shift means financial freedom for individuals and national autonomy, signaling the end of the deep state's control over Europe's financial systems. 3. UK Portal. A return to sterling strength. The UK portal introduces the sterling token, an asset-backed currency restoring financial independence to England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. This new currency, supported by the QFS, ends Britain's reliance on the euro and deep state influence, with each transaction secure and traceable. 4. Asia-Africa-Australia Portal. A continental shift in power covering a vast area including India, South Africa, Australia, and all of Asia, this portal represents a seismic shift in global financial power. The QFS will support these nations with asset-backed currencies, promoting economic prosperity from their own resources rather than exploitation by external forces. Unleashing a new wave of prosperity, Asia, Africa, and Australia, once battlegrounds for financial manipulation, will experience newfound prosperity. This portal promises a future where wealth benefits the people and economies of these regions, free from external interference. The grip of the deep state is loosening as financial freedom becomes a reality. Update. New list of 209 countries that are connected to the QFS system or are being connected. QFS plus RTGS trust the plan. Today, we uncover the intricate web of banks that are now aligning with the QFS system. The QFS, or Quantum Financial System, has been the subject of much speculation, whispers in dimly lit rooms, and late-night conspiracy theory forums. Some say it's the future, while others claim it's just another fanciful myth. But what if I told you that 97 of the top 100 central banks are being covertly connected to this system? The world's central banks have long been seen as the puppeteers of the global economy, shaping the fate of nations with their decisions. Their influence is undeniable. But what happens when these behemoths of finance join forces with an emergent, arguably enigmatic, technological powerhouse like the QFS? Hold on to your hats, folks, because here comes the bombshell. Our inside source, a brave individual deep within military intelligence circles, identity classified for obvious reasons, has dropped a piece of information that might just shake the very foundations of the global economy. 97 of the top 100 central banks are currently under transformation to become fully operational under the QFS plus RTGS system. That's not all. The remaining 82 smaller central banks are gearing up for this transition. But first, let's roll back a bit. For those of you who have been living under a rock, or perhaps wisely distancing yourself from the maddening world of global finance and its shady undertakings, the QFS plus RTGS is the new kid on the block. It stands for Quantum Financial System and Real-Time Gross Settlement. In layman terms, it's a sophisticated financial network ensuring instantaneous money transfers without the usual delays. Why is this significant, you ask? Well, imagine the world where money flows without barriers, without time lapses, without the invisible hands manipulating the scene behind thick velvet curtains. A world where every transaction is transparent, well, to those who know where to look. This is the promise of the QFS. Boom! There are a total of 179 central banks listed by the BIS, with about 80 more when counting regional monetary authorities among the 209 countries. All these are being connected too. Party 1 QFS plus RTGS. List of banks that are connected to the QFS system.
Well, the interesting thing is there's already a treaty in place for 209 countries to trade in gold 1-for-1. It's been in existence for quite some time, and it's actually going into effect right now. What J.D. Vance is doing and what others are doing, I think, are false flags. Because if 209 countries have already agreed to go to asset-backed currency, And as soon as it's officially announced, we go to an election 120 days from that announcement. Not the midterms, but 120 days from that announcement, according to the law that was passed for Nisara Jasara. So when we look at 209 countries agreeing that they're going to trade, if I'm going to buy corn, I'm going to pay whatever the gold rate is today for that corn. And it's going to be one for one, country to country. That is the theory of the Jasara and the QFS, the quantitative financial system. If a country goes to war, quantitative financial system takes all its money, so it can't go to war. But the reality of the trade becomes very interesting. I was interested in the way barter is starting to go back into place. When I talk barter, we're talking about AJ's trading off vegetables for gold and silver, or silver and gold for land. That's barter. That's the old-fashioned barter system. I know that when the Vatican gold was taken out, its estimated value was between 36 and 57 quadrillion dollars on 640 or 620 Air Force airplanes hauled that gold back to the United States, and that the Chinese elders and Trump's people and the other countries, other 209 countries, have been actually distributing the gold to make sure that everybody has the asset-backed currency they're supposed to have. This is a dramatic change in the world we live in. When it's going to be officially announced, we don't know. We do know that QFS has replaced the SWIFT system. I've experienced transferring money from the United States to Europe in 5 minutes, where it used to take almost a week. So we know that the SWIFT system is essentially gone. We also know that Putin never took it, never believed in it, never had it, that he operated separate from it. And we know that Putin, Xi, Modi, Trump have been working together on the gold-backed currency business, in spite of what we read about what's going on. There are pictures of the four of them sitting around a table.
Military intel, global strategic impact, Starlink's military applications, RVs and GSARA, and the quantum financial system. In this extraordinary epoch, we find ourselves at the crossroads of technological evolution and financial innovation. The convergence of the quantum financial system, QFS, stellar network, and Starlink satellite system heralds a new dawn, redefining the paradigms of monetary transactions and fortifying financial security across the globe. Quantum financial system, QFS, the Fort Knox of financial systems. At the heart of this revolution is the quantum financial system, QFS, a marvel of technological advancement synonymous with unmatched security and transparency. QFS is not merely a system, it is a symphony of ultra-secure financial transactions, epitomizing the pinnacle of monetary protection and ensuring the inviolability of financial data. The revolutionary QFS leverages quantum computing to safeguard financial transactions and information, eliminating the vulnerabilities of traditional systems. By encrypting data with quantum technology, QFS renders unauthorized access and financial crimes obsolete, establishing a financial ecosystem impervious to external threats and securing the trust of individuals and nations in this new financial paradigm. Stellar network, the prodigy of financial efficiency. Next, let's explore the Stellar Network, a prodigious entity that converges efficiency and inclusivity within the financial sphere. It is the linchpin uniting disparate financial systems, catalyzing seamless, cost-effective cross-border transactions, and fostering financial cohesion and prosperity. Stellar is the harbinger of financial democratization, offering swift and affordable financial services to every individual, regardless of geographical or economic barriers. As a catalyst for economic empowerment, it envisions a future where financial obstacles are non-existent, ensuring that secure and equitable financial transactions are accessible to all. Starlink, bridging distances, connecting worlds. Finally, Starlink emerges as a beacon of hope, bridging the digital divide with Elon Musk's ambitious constellation of satellites. This pioneering venture promises unparalleled internet connectivity, narrowing the digital chasm and making global communication a reality for every community, even in the remotest corners. Starlink's mission transcends geographical constraints, empowering remote areas and laying the foundation for universal financial inclusion. With this vast network, connectivity becomes a cornerstone of global financial security, enabling the world to embrace a secure, inclusive, and efficient financial future. The amalgamation of QFS, Stellar, and Starlink is not just a convergence of technologies, it is the manifestation of a financial utopia. This alliance forges a realm where security, inclusivity, and efficiency coexist, creating a new reality where every transaction embodies unparalleled safety, every individual benefits from financial inclusivity, and every nation contributes to global economic cooperation.
Monday, August 10th, Donald Trump's vision for Q phones and Jasara is more than a leap in technology, it's a global financial revolution. Powered by Stellar blockchain, this plan redefines currency, communication, and power. Are you ready for what's coming? The global currency reset is more than whispers. It's a storm brewing in the corridors of power. Q phones are at the center, preloaded with Stellar wallets to connect directly to the quantum financial system. Imagine real-time global transactions without banks, fees, or delays. This is financial freedom on a cosmic scale.
Rescare event. Nuke Sirens water event stock market crash global martial law Castle Rock scenario Julian Assange. Quantum systems. Project Odin switched on. Nasara/Jasara/RV election flipping via military courts. FISA military tribunals confessions 10-day movie. 3x8 HR sessions. 10 countries will be running EBS to cover the whole world. Reveals. Inauguration, the Israeli Mossad control the world's media out of the U.S. Attached is Q1871 outlining this. Project Odin, as mentioned by Ron Code Monkeys, is a powerful anti-deplatforming tool. Project Odin is part of Quantum Starlink. Our new quantum systems are to be protected by secret space programs out of the cabal's reach. Q2337 tells you Mossad media assets will be removed. Think people like Alex Jones, Anderson Cooper, etc., and also Mossad satellites. Israeli intelligence, stand down. Term 3720 x 380-293,476,669,283,001. Media assets will be removed. This part of 2527 tells you that something powerful is going to knock out Mossad media satellites. This will black out the media worldwide, switch us over to the quantum systems. This is Project Odin. All in all, give the reason to activate the military EBS. If you look up the TURKSAT rocket that launched from the USA in January, you will see it was specifically for military COMMS to people's TVs and radios in Africa, Middle East, Europe, and Central Asia. The event has many facets to it. The worldwide blackout to change over to Tesla energy, knocking out media satellites, QFS, rods of God on dams, and 34 buildings, and much, much more. 34 buildings will be in the event. They are very significant, i.e. White House, royal castles, Buckingham Palace, Vatican, Getty Museum, Playboy Mansion, and the like. This will surely make the stock market collapse, as will Precision Cyber linked to Executive Orders 13,818 and 13,848. It is all a show. Swapping from Rothschild's central bank notes to rainbow treasury notes now backed by precious metals. Not oil wars, are we still comfy? Or are we scared? A little bit of both is normal. Trump keeps his promises. Have faith in the Lord our God. He will comfort you through the storm. Who saw in January up to 10 countries at once have their power all turned off by the Space Force? Just before that, Israel had that happen for 30 mins too. If they can turn 10 at once off altogether, they can do the whole lot. Welcome to Tesla. Blackout necessary. Have a look at all the global military exercises now being put in place. It's all happening in front of you. It's the largest global military operation in planet Earth's history. Transition to Jassara/greatness. Now they just have to play out a fake WW3 scenario to ring sirens in every national military command center. This is to justify to the whole entire planet many things that have been taking place already. The fact that Jassara military law has been in place. The secret military tribunals, confessions, etc. The executions, the lot. And like all militaries normally do...
Monday, August 10th, Black Swan events, massive cyber attack pending, global financial collapse happening now, China, Germany have experienced financial collapses, banks, closures, markets down, Bitcoin stopped trading, happening now, devolution plan, martial law, already in effect for continuity of government, white hat military arrest wars, JAG, Gitmo, and world court tribunals, quantum financial system active, expected soon, blackout, EBS activation, Hillary Clinton exposed warning, viewer discretion, advised, crimes against humanity, high crimes, human trafficking, human farming, child sex, pedophilia, adrenochrome, genocide, terrorism, treason. Sunday, August 9th, mass cyber blackouts, neutralize corporate data centers and deep state communication backbones. Global intelligence alliances have confirmed that secure military tribunals are now in session around the clock. Secure servers ensures that all involved actors face immediate prosecution under war crime jurisdiction. Citadel protocols remain active worldwide. Civilian governance structures are replaced by direct operational command to maintain absolute public security during the systematic dissolution of the old elite class. This is the turning point. The network is deconstructed. Stay plugged into secure channels for continuous disclosure logs as the new paradigm unfolds. Global Military Alliance initiates full seizure of mainstream media, broadcasting networks, and corporate news headquarters to implement emergency truth transmissions. Massive military sweep across elite private islands and subterranean facility networks confirms complete neutralization of rogue operations and underground human logistics nodes. Interpol and Global Military Command execute simultaneous raids on Central Intelligence Black Site archives, recovering decades of hidden financial records, blackmail vaults, and direct order logs. International shipping hubs and port authorities placed under strict military quarantine to prevent high-profile elites from escaping via private maritime fleets and diplomatic aircraft. Over 80,000 military police and special operation units deployed across major financial and political capitals to secure critical infrastructure during the ongoing global transition.
Global Military Command authorizes nationwide emergency broadcasting overrides to transmit 10 days of hidden documentary evidence and confessions directly to all public screens. The emergency deployment of Space Force communications, relays to lock down secure quantum channels, and block corporate media censorship entirely. International banking consortia and central ledger systems confirmed completely offline as the full transition to asset-backed currency protocols takes effect. Over 150,000 sealed indictments unsealed simultaneously across federal districts, triggering immediate asset freezes and executive detention orders for international corporate titans and compromised media executives. You can't make this up, and if you're still reading the mainstream headlines thinking it's just random noise, you are missing the whole operation playing out right in front of your eyes. Let's talk about what just landed on the global radar, creating total confusion and weird panic on the public feeds. Suddenly, all the big feeds and emergency channels were ablaze with strange panic narratives, promoting wild tales of sudden global banking freezes, high-security grid alerts, and massive institutional lockouts, all occurring simultaneously across international hubs. The mainstream talking heads are scrambling on live TV, feeding the masses completely fabricated distractions to explain why entire legacy frameworks are suddenly locking up or going dark. They call it system upgrades, routine maintenance, or sudden technical anomalies. I call it what it really is: the ISO 20022 hard cutover. What the general public does not understand is that these sudden digital blackouts and institutional freezes are the direct result of the new messaging standard completely displacing the old dying Swift nodes. Behind those locked doors, the whole global financial matrix is moving over to the ISO 20022 compliant rails, locking in the asset-backed reality once and for all. They aren't fixing bugs. They are pulling the plug on the old debt system to make way for the quantum financial system. And right next to this massive migration, the operational pressure points for Tier 4B are coming to their absolute boiling point. While the mainstream press is screaming about random economic anomalies, the private redemption and exchange structures set up for Tier 4B are quietly completing their final systems sinks in the background. The appointment scheduling protocols, secure routing links, and verification nodes are lighting up, meaning that the long-awaited instructions are getting ready to drop for the Internet group holding the physical asset-backed currencies. Every time a major legacy node freezes, every time a banking portal goes down unexpectedly, every time the media frantically spins a new distraction, another layer of the corporate fiction crumbles away. The transition is no longer some distant theory, but rather is pushing its way through the physical infrastructure right now. Wake up to what is really going on. They can try to cover it up with corporate spin and digital smoke, but the basic architecture is being rewritten from the ground up. Keep your eyes wide open. Stay locked into the reality of the ISO and the Tier 4B deployment, and watch how fast the old world collapses under the weight of its own lies. Obama's shadow operation to destroy Trump and the United States itself. Edward Snowden https://t me/Edward Snowden channel Obama quietly established a shadow opposition government, a network of radicals and corrupt power, a coordinated machine built to sabotage Donald Trump and the U.S. itself from day one. This was first conceived through the Obama campaign in 2012, and then turned it into a 501 to hide their donors, through a radical Alinsky-trained group that Obama founded called the OFA, or Organizing for Action. These are the deep state's radical foot soldiers. This shadow network of criminals consisted of over 30,000 radicals embedded all over the country. These are professionally trained criminals, more sophisticated and ruthless than groups such as Black Lives Matter and other riot groups causing chaos all over the country. These professional criminals and agitators are schooled in Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, tactics from a program that lasted 6 weeks, which over 32,000 foot soldiers have attended, with another 25,000 that were training at the time to directly work for the deep state to take down Republicans, conservatives, the United States, and the Constitution itself. OFA and the Obama Foundation were the fronts for these operations, which he proudly advertised, and then planned to merge both of these foundations together, along with the DNC. Then they get the proprietary database of the voters from OFA, the email list of millions of Obama supporters, and add the donor lists on top, which then creates a superstructure. To top it off, you also have some of the leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities, which then creates an unprecedented shadow cabal with Obama at the top to take down Trump and the United States itself. This is what was being created and doing the bidding of Obama and the globalist deep state cabal itself. Once you see the big picture, you start to finally understand what we are truly up against and are fighting to save this country. They branded me a traitor. History will call me a hero. The IRS adopted the SSN as the taxpayer identification number in 1962. The Tax Reform Act of 1976 opened it to the states. But does that ACT apply to you? The IRS is a privately owned by the Cabal Corporation. In 1986, Congress required an SSN to claim your own child as a dependent. But did filing apply to you? Then came enumeration at birth in 1987. An entire generation was numbered in the nursery. A number created for a ledger became the key to employment, banking, credit, and licensing. But is it the law? No, it's the perception of the law, banking. Do you know foreign nationals can get bank accounts with their passports and other ID? But an American, only by jumping through hoops that nobody tells you about. Know the history. The intent of a law is very important. Many of them come from lobbyists who know the right people. Know the difference between what the law requires and what the system demands. Do you have to participate in the system? Likely not. I figured it out back in 1999. It's legal fawkery. Want to know more? Text 1776 to 954 775 852 for what's most pressing on your mind.
Happening is quite extraordinary. First of all, there's a full-blown military revolt underway in the United States. Okay, this is can be seen in the media to some extent with Joe Kent, the head of the anti-terrorism task force, resigning. Take a look at this clip with Tucker Carlson showing why he resigns. They're going to try to charge Joe Kent with leaking classified information and put him in jail. But they're not willing to arrest people who... Is that what the United States has come to? Is that the sort of government you want? This is not going to be allowed to continue. And I've received multiple intelligence communications from military white hats that Trump tried to order the U.S. military to start a ground war in Iran and that they are disobeying his orders. Now, we need to take this further because this is a life or death situation. These people use targeted assassinations. They'll try to kill any military leaders who are trying to oppose this Armageddon attempt. So what needs to be done is you need to send special forces into the Treasury Department, the fake White House studio in Florida, and the headquarters of the major media companies like Google, Meta, and the various networks. They need to be occupied by the military so that they can start conveying the truth to the people. For example, one truth they are not announcing is that Iran has sent a message to all major countries saying that the Strait of Hormuz is open. The only country they are blocking is the United States and their rulers in Israel. So the Straits of Hormuz are open. It's only the Americans who are being blocked. Now, the other big news item that's not being reported, but that needs to be reported, is that a ground war has started. Israel is now being invaded or occupied, or liberated, I should say, from these Satanists. And that is another huge news item that you're probably not seeing in your corporate news feed. So it's important for the military to get a hold of the corporate news feed and start conveying the truth to the people, because they all know it anyway. Nobody believes it anymore. You know, and this is a problem too that extends to Canada. You know, the Canadian Human Rights Commission is saying Canada no longer has human rights. And this is because, again, a lot of the political class there, just as in the United States, are blackmailed pedophiles. So I suggest that the white hats in the U.S. military and the British military work with the white hats in the Canadian military to clean up the Anglo-Saxon world from this filth. And the rest of the world is waiting for us to get rid of our satanic infection. Okay, now take a look. This is Chinese lawyer Victor Gao saying that China is ready to release the Epstein files, all of them. So China is aware that the Western world has got some kind of infection of evil, and they're going to try to do something about it. And the key, and this is the real key, is you have to take away control of their funny money machine. Okay, Trump has just offered, $200 billion to the military. You can see that in this clip here with the Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi Sanai, who, by the way, is complete slave, but we'll get into that another day. But in any case, Japan has politely said they're not going to join any war against Iran, and Eddie Trump goes around saying, we'll give you $200 billion to the U.S. military. Well, that money is just money created out of nothing. Okay, it's stolen from the people, and it is why you are poor. Now the Federal Reserve Board has come out and shown that these NGOs have more than $14 trillion that is taken from people, to fund things like the WHO, which is trying to turn us all into permanent slaves. So the key is to remove their control of the funny money machine, and the Dragon family has sent documents to the U.S. Treasury that would open the floodgates for as much funding as the United States and Canada need to rebuild their infrastructure, to end the poverty, and to rejoin the world community as normal, non-terrorist countries. Let's face it, the U.S. and Israel are the world's main source of terrorism, together with their cousins in Ukraine. These satanic gangsters need to be permanently eradicated, and these funds will help. Now, the other thing that we have on offer, the White Hat Alliance has an open offer to the American people that all your debt will be written off. You'll have no more debt, none. Plus, we will return the money that was stolen from you through central bank fraud. So all those NGOs that have money, that's money that was stolen from you. Okay, that's $14 trillion that should be returned to you. This is what's going to happen as soon as we take away control of the magic money machine. And the key is to locate the French Rothschild family and the other members of these families, the Rockefellers. They all need to be rounded up, taken in for questioning, and then we can end this. And it will be a very, very good thing for humanity when these people are finally removed. And it is happening. Like I say, there's a military revolt happening in real time, and this needs to be encouraged. I even heard it on Far Eastern military radio that the head of the Delta Force was on that radio saying that they're not going to go to war with Iran. So the revolt is underway, but we need to get those corporate media outlets from the hands of these people, and we need to start arresting all the Epstein criminals, starting with the fake Donald Trump. And as Joe Kent wrote in his letter, he's aware that the real Donald Trump has been missing since June of 2025. So he's not your commander-in-chief. He is a fraud who replaced the real commander-in-chief, Donald J. Trump, who has been missing since he went to a G7 meeting in Canada in 2025. And that means that Mark Carney of Canada needs to be held responsible for this. This is not how you treat a neighbor. And we can all end this right away. And the military needs to not waver, and they need to go straight into those corporations, and they need to take over control of all the screens so that the truth once again comes out, because the truth is going to set us free. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Oh, one more thing. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's now missed his 14th consecutive security meeting. He's definitely out of the picture. They put out different fakes of him. One where he's a rubber mask guy who's lost 50 pounds in a week, and the other ones. But he's gone, and that's a good thing. I mean, it means that Israel is actually leaderless. Even if they keep putting out fake videos, it's not going to change the reality. And Israel is being occupied now. The military is moving in there, according to the Iranians. All right, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. There are reports stating that Iran has choked off nitrogen fertilizer exports, and with 35 to 40% of fertilizer coming out of the Gulf, do you see this becoming a global food crisis for the West? And by doing this, doesn't this play right into the hands of the Khazarian mafia? And does this turn into a food supply shortage, in your opinion?
The only people who are threatening to cut off fertilizer are the Khazarian mafia. The Iranians have announced that they're not cutting off anything. So if there's a cutoff of fertilizer, you're going to have to go to the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers to solve that problem. not to the Iranians. But yeah, the Khazarian mafia is trying to create a food crisis. Anything they can do to prevent justice for their mass murder of children. Next question.
Hi, Ben. There is news that Cuba has given in to the pressure and is now in negotiations with the United States. What are your thoughts on this, and what do you think is the outcome?
The Russians are now sending ships to supply Cuba with fuel. But at the end of the day, I think that the Americas, North and South America, are going to have to come to a new arrangement to replace the dominance of the region by the Khazarian mafia-controlled United States. So hopefully, Cuba will have friendly relations with all the rest of the Americas in a mutually beneficial manner. But what they must not do is surrender to the people behind fake Donald Trump. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Bibi's dead theory is now circulating everywhere, and you touched on this already. We're increasingly seeing more AI videos as Israel tries to, quote, prove that he's alive. Is it, or do you think that he's just hiding somewhere?
If he is alive, he should be hiding because, personally, I want him to be alive because I want him to be arrested in front of the cameras and then face a war crimes tribunal and then be hung in public if found guilty. That's what we really want. Next question.
Hi, Ben. I'm wondering about the Q drops that are very consistently saying that Israel must be saved for last. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but maybe you do. And are we there yet?
Well, clearly, if Israel is liberated, then the United States will be liberated. And the other group that needs to be dealt with are all these satanic Nazis in the Ukraine. So I would say Ukraine and Israel and the United States are being saved for last. And that's happening now in real time. Hopefully the American people will be liberated from these satanic cultists sooner rather than later. And the U.S. military is on the case. And I strongly encourage all members of the U.S. Armed Forces to create a new chain of command outside of the control of fake Donald Trump and the people around him. Next question.
Ivan, we have our last question for today. It says, I don't think Mark Carney will last 6 months. It doesn't make me feel comfortable of hearing the bad news about Indian immigrants in Canada creating huge criminal networks in major cities, except for Montreal, Quebec City, and any maritime cities. The whole creation of India, after all, had a Zionist pretext, and India today is essentially an Israeli colony, just like the United States. Many of the Hindu nationalists in India are Israeli spies, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on this take?
Well, certainly Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the Epstein files, and he's gone out of his way to suck up to the Israeli regime, so they must have some compromise on him. However, I wouldn't, I think overall India is an English-speaking friend of the Anglo-Saxon world, and we should have good relations with India. And as far as immigrants creating crime networks is concerned, clearly in the past few years, Canadian immigration policy has degenerated. It used to be that you had to be very useful, well-educated, and provide job skills that no Canadians had in order to immigrate into Canada. Now they're taking these high school dropout men, military age from the third world, and dumping them in Canada. That is not what Canadian immigration policy should be about. And I strongly encourage the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to, eliminate all these crime networks and start deporting, foreign-born criminals who are brought in to deliberately cause unrest. As now, by now, a critical mass of humanity is aware, Western civilization got hijacked by a satanic cult. And this goes back thousands of years, and this cult is in the process of being overthrown. Take a look at this event in Iran where they're burning an effigy of Baal to see what I'm talking about. Now, it's not just Iran. I mean, the whole world at this point is aware of this, the nature of this cult. And there is an international movement. I mean, the Chinese are fully aware of what they're dealing with now. So are the Russians, the Russian Orthodox Church, and a critical mass within the Western military-industrial complex, the intelligence agencies, understands that their top ranks have been compromised by this cult. Now, as the next step, let's see what the Alexander Dugin, speaking for Russia, has to say about the situation. There can be no doubt that the current paradigm is collapsing, but the question is, what do we do about it? And the answer is not going to be easy. Last week, I was offered a huge amount of money by the Chinese to help rebuild the Western system, but I did not accept it because, first of all, who am I? Why should I be me? So instead, what we're going to have to do, and this is what has been negotiated behind the scenes, and we're hoping to make it happen, is we'll replace the blackmailed pedophile Keir Starmer as the Chancellor of the Prime Minister of the UK, and replace him with Nigel Farage, who's a genuine, talented individual. And at that point, we will call for a new Bretton Woods agreement. So, in full public scrutiny, under full public scrutiny, we will work on replacing the current system. It's not going to be another secret thing where a document is passed and no, it's got to be done in public, and this is going to be a big process. But what I think the conclusion is, and I remember when I first appeared to talk about this stuff on Jeff Rent's about 20 years ago, I said that if Jesus Christ was alive today, the first thing he would do would be to unplug the mainframes at the Federal Reserve Board. And I still think that is the truth. We don't want a system based on numbers put into computers that then control us through mathematical formulas. That's not how we want to manage our civilization. But that's what's happening. And I'll show you let's take a look now at the Pam Bondi hearings to show you what I mean. First, listen to California Representative Ted Lieu confront Bondi.
I love this.
So that, again, is the fake Trump, because there is a real Trump who's a very different individual who worked with the White Hats and who's not with, you have to understand that. It's like you have two different studios, each with their own Batman. We have two different studios, each with their own Trump. If you can't wrap your head around this, you're not going to figure out what's going on. Okay, in any case, the Epstein hearings in the U.S. government was mostly kabuki, in the sense that you didn't see names like Rockefeller or Rothschild appear. They didn't talk about because they're trying to limit it, and they're most of them are involved on both sides. So that's why they're pulling their punches. Nonetheless, I think Representative Massey is not one of these individuals. Take a look at what he has to say.
Chairman.
Releasing the list of people who risk their lives to testify against these criminals while hiding the names of these criminals. And this shows you that they're all in cahoots. But more important is listen to Bondi's answer. She basically says, well, the Dow Jones is at $50,000. The thing is, though, their money machine is no longer affecting the real economy. They publish nothing but lies. For example, they recently published a jobs report that was supposed to be better than expected, 130,000 new jobs added, when in fact, if you take away the mathematical seasonal adjustment magic, you find that 2.65 million people became newly unemployed. So it's all falling apart, and their lies about the system are not going to work. And the other thing is that in order to guard their magic monetary system, they have been systematically. I was just reading about how they now show that Kurt Cobain of the band Nirvana was murdered. Well, he's just one of many. Bob Marley was murdered because he was a non-Khazarian, non-European leader. The same with Bruce Lee. He was murdered because he was not part of their cult, and they don't like talented people who are not part of their cult. The same with President John F. Kennedy. He was a Catholic. He wasn't part of their group, so they killed him. Martin Luther King. They've been doing this systematically to try to stay in power, and that's why they really do need to face justice. And again, the alternative to this system is one that has been worked out through trial and error over hundreds of years. It started with Nazi Germany. Okay, never mind the Holocaust, which is a burnt offering to Satan of assimilated Jews by other, satanic Jews. Let's leave that part aside. Everyone got a Volkswagen. They built the Autobahn highway system. They had television, phones, all sorts of stuff brought to you without debt or taxes by having the government issue money. And they radically raised the standards of living, of the German people. Now, the same thing happened in Japan after World War II. They set up a system of future planning. They had an economic planning agency, and they had decades of double-digit growth. And until the system started being taken apart by the Khazarian mafia, countless prime ministers and bureaucrats and stuff. But by 1985, they had the highest standard of living on Earth and the least gap between the rich and the poor in any of the OECD countries, the developed countries. And that system was taken apart. However, in the 1980s, or was it the 70s, I think, Deng Xiaoping, the leader of China, went to Japan. He visited the founder of Panasonic, Matsushita Konosuke, and learned the system that had led to Japanese success. And that's what the Chinese have done. That's why, for example, in 2024, a single Chinese company produced more ships than the entire United States did in the 80 years after World War II. So what we're talking about is implementing an improved version of the system for economic management of the West, and then switching the Western civilization's long-term goal from creating a world capital in Jerusalem to one of helping increase the amount and variety of life, including human life. That would be our long-term goal, but we would once again be the good guys. That's what we're fighting for, and that's why it has to be done in public with an international conference like Bretton Woods, so everybody's on board, or at least as many people as possible, so that we can accomplish the greatest good for the greatest number. That's what we're fighting for, but until the Chinese New Year's ends in March, we're going to watch this system continue to fall apart. And if I'm reading I read the comments in different sites, and basically, we're very close to all these people being dragged out of their houses and hung from the nearest lamppost. That's where it's getting to. So we better act quick. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers. There was one last thing I forgot to mention. We saw Elon Musk hallucinating about building giant AI factories on the moon. This is an example of how they've been taking their magic money and pumping it through people like him, but it's not really, producing the results. And he's freaking out because he's about to lose this magic money machine that makes him the so-called richest man on Earth. When in fact, in normal business practice, he would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. Never mentioned being arrested for fraud, which is true of a lot of these people. Okay, now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers. Next question.
Ivan, that being said, do you believe that Satan exists? You often talk about the world being run by Satanists. Do you believe that this is really a spiritual warfare and that there's some sort of benefit that these elites are getting by performing these rituals?
Well, they themselves actually believe that Satan is real, and if they do something like sacrifice a child, they will get a lot of money or power or something. But even if you don't have to invoke the supernatural. You can just think of it as a kind of a cultural phenomenon, a kind of a multi-generational group mind that functions as Satan. So, you don't have to bring in anything interdimensional, although that may well exist. It's just this collective group mind among very high level, the elite, that is the problem, and that can, that can be defined as Satan. So yeah. Next question.
Hi Ben, could you elaborate on how you think we can pay off these massive debts without giving more money to the criminals who indebted us in the first place?
Yeah, we have to have a jubilee. That means we have to completely reboot the entire financial system, and then we start by inventorying the real stuff, land and buildings and factories and gold and stuff like that, to come up with a new system that's actually controlled by the people and is used for the people. So it's not a question of borrowing from these people again. No, we don't want debt slavery anymore. The whole thing will have to be rebooted, and that's why we need a big conference to work this out. This is not going to be done by a small group of people in secret. Next question.
Hi Ben, what are your thoughts on reptilians or shapeshifters? Do you think they exist? What about videos of people with vertically long pupils or eyes changing in strange ways while on camera?
I haven't personally seen any evidence of this. I've met several of these people who are supposed to be reptilians, but I go with Occam's razor. I prefer to think of it as a metaphor, that when these people who are normally, nice, upstanding citizens suddenly transform and start, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and I just haven't seen any real solid proof these reptilians exist, except for videos, which, as we all know, can be doctored. But certainly it works as a metaphor. Next question.
Hi Ben, we have our last question for today. There is a theory that people like Andrew Jackson, many former presidents, and their partners have never died but changed their identities throughout history, basically immortal. One example of this is that if you take a photo of Andrew Jackson and Jeffrey Epstein, as well as Andrew Jackson's wife and Ghislaine Maxwell, they look almost identical. Do you think that there's anything to these theories?
I don't know, but I'll be honest. They used to put out a picture that showed me looking like Benjamin Franklin, and I think that there's. We are part of a single genetic line going back, from the beginning of life on Earth, and I think a lot of us inherit the mantle or try to, inherit the spirit of these people. So. Because my name is Benjamin, when I was a kid, I read a lot about Benjamin Franklin. I admired him, and I tried to, live a life similar to his. And I think that's what's going on. A lot of us, for example, admire President Jackson and wish to, continue his work. It's us as a species fighting over how we navigate into the future, and that's the real battle. And that is being multi-generational. And it's also spiritual. But I think the forces are light have finally won.
Restored Republic via GCR. Duty note, it's imminent. Global emergency broadcast system activation under martial law for a 3-day event, and then 10 days of communication darkness while 8 billion people and all banks across the globe complete a global currency reset to gold/asset-backed currencies. Temporary martial law alert. Expect a global blackout and emergency broadcast system EBS activation. Military units have been mobilizing worldwide for a coordinated strike to destroy the globalist power structure in the greatest sting operation ever. Every cell phone on the planet will be hit with 7 trumpet sounds transmitted from the Starlink satellites, bypassing the elite-controlled media channels. Afterward, normal communication will cease for 10 days while truthful documentaries take over the airways to explain what's going on. 10 days of communication darkness, Shutdowns will occur, but only in certain areas. Banks will close, ATMs and credit cards will stop working. You'll need at least 3 weeks of food and water. If you're unprepared, don't worry. The military will supply what you need. Non-stop education will be broadcast, teaching about the true principles of freedom and justice. The alliance has spent years preparing for this announcement, quietly building a network of satellites and secure communication lines. Over it, President Trump will give 7 messages to the world about a new era of freedom about to begin. Why? Because over 500,000 arrests of treasonous pedophile deep state globalists were in the process of being made worldwide by Trump's global military alliance. For many years these criminals have had control of the global financial system and have slowly been taking away our freedoms in line with their New World Order Depopulation Agenda 2030. They felt it their right to rule the world and everyone in it. Key to that cabal takeover was the global currency reset of 209 nations that gave the people's taxpayer monies back to the people. On Sunday, 23rd of August, 2026, the new gold/asset-backed quantum financial system of 209 nations was set to go live. It's the dawn of financial transparency, accountability and freedom from cabal control. Obama quietly established a shadow government of radicals to sabotage Donald Trump, the American people and the Constitution, according to Edward Snowden. Through a 501c4, to hide their donors, the Organizing for Action, Obama Foundation and DNC network of criminals consisted of over 32,000 radicals, with 25,000 more in training. The Senior Executive Service, created under Carter, was weaponized under Obama. In December 2015, Obama's one single executive order turned 8,000 civilian generals into a stay-behind army and replaced 6,000 plus of them with Obama deep state loyalists. Radicals were embedded all over the country to cause chaos. Joining them were some of the leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities. This created a shadow globalist deep state cabal with Obama at the top to take down Trump and the United States itself. Monday, August 10, 2026. Not only are Democratic Socialists of America members taking a pledge to the Chinese Communist Party, but they are flown over and treated like royalty in China. All of them should be forced to renounce their citizenship. Senator Jim Banks, this is what they want to do to America. Turn it into communist China. And this letter by the leadership of DSA makes that very clear. They stand with socialist communist China and they want the rest of the world to take a page from China's playbook and become that. Trump was also taking down the left's mass protest funding networks in Cuba, where he just increased CIA operations and was not ruling out military operations. Marco Rubio confirmed Cuba is funding NGOs organizing mass protests in America. B. What we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now are supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. Monday, August 10, 2026, the Gates Foundation just developed Mark of the Beast microneedle implants that install permanent quantum QR codes and mRNA into your body. Monday, August 10, 2026, cop who was jailed over the arrest of George Floyd believes he was set up to be murdered in prison attack to silence him. Total says if he lied, he would have been spared prison and maybe even been made police chief. He chose to speak the truth because of his Christian faith. Monday, August 10, 2026, Sharia law survivor from Iran sends a chilling warning to the McKinney, Texas City Council, urging them not to build the massive Islamic mosque. I'm here to tell you that this is a dangerous ideology you are allowing into your country. Every Islamic country now used to be a Christian nation, and they allow these people to come in and bring their Sharia law. These people will lie to you to manipulate you while they are weak. They will tell you they come in peace, then all of the sudden you're the UK, where there is now two-tiered policing with Islamophobia laws. I'm telling you, this is a bad idea and you're going to regret it not listening to people like me. Monday, August 10, 2026, Muslims ran the longest and largest slave trade in history. Since the 7th century, Muslims have enslaved up to 30 million Africans and 5 million Europeans. This is still ongoing. The MAGA Legion on Telegram. On Sunday, 22nd of November, 2026, the new ISO 20022 International Banking Standards will go into full effect on this 63rd anniversary of the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. When combined with Basel III and Project Aurora, they will make it almost impossible to hide dark money anywhere in the world that matters. Many people think that Kennedy was killed because he signed Executive Order 11,110, which told the U.S. Treasury to avoid the Federal Reserve monetary system and make new money using fixed amounts of U.S. stockpiled silver. This step would have almost certainly caused a huge economic chain reaction around the world that would have brought down the whole European-based central banking empire. See possible timing global currency reset. On August 6, 2026, at 14:23 EST, Trump signed Executive Order 2026-1947, allowing them to be released for use of the general public. Distribution to civilian centers begins in September 2026. On Sunday 23 August 2026 the QFS will go live. It's the dawn of financial transparency, accountability and freedom from cabal control. The 22nd of November 2026 the new ISO 20022 International Banking Standards will go into full effect on this 63rd anniversary of the assassination of U.S. President. Monday, August 10, 2026 confirmed intel, the Tier 4B protocol is now active. What was mocked for years as rumor and fantasy has moved into controlled execution. Iraq and Zimbabwe are quietly leading a financial shift that is unfolding outside public markets, driven by structure, security, and silence. The revaluation of IQD and ZIM is no longer speculation. It is operational reality. For years, holders of these currencies endured ridicule while institutions quietly prepared behind closed doors. Now, whispers have turned into verified bank appointments, tiered access structures, and private exchange processes running through U.S. banking channels. The global currency reset has entered its execution phase, and Tier 4B is where the public finally intersects with it. This is not a public forex event. It is a controlled, classified restructuring following a strict tiered framework. Tier 1 involves sovereign governments and central banks. Tier 2 covers multinational corporations and elite financial trusts. Tier 3 includes high net worth entities with pre-negotiated contracts. Tier 4B is where private citizens with legally acquired currency holdings are activated. This is the entry point for those who held through silence and delay, and Tier 4B is now live. Major U.S. banks have already moved. Quietly. By appointment only. Private exchange centers are operational, utilizing enhanced security, identity verification, proof of purchase validation, NDAs, and post-exchange wealth structuring. This is not theory, and it is not public-facing. It is controlled execution under blackout conditions. The defining rule of Tier 4B is simple: no Vulcans, no leaks, no spectacle. Participants are vetted. Devices are restricted. Consultations are documented. Discretion is mandatory. This is not a public rollout but a monitored operation designed to prevent market shock and systemic disruption. Inside internal banking systems, exchange values for IQD is already appearing at levels the public cannot see. Public forex platforms lag because they are not part of this track. Tier 4B operates separately, and it is already moving capital. Iraq stands at the center of this reset. Sanctions that suppress the dinar for decades have been lifted. Digital banking infrastructure aligned with international standards is active. UN and US oversight has formally ended, restoring full sovereignty. Internal anti-corruption operations have recovered stolen assets, converting them into revaluation leverage. Iraq is no longer constrained. It is activated. Zimbabwe follow with resource-backed frameworks already in motion. Gold-backed structures and project-based valuation models are aligning for phased integration through 2025 and into 2026. The rollout is deliberate. Initial internal testing is complete. High-volume holders are prioritized first, followed by mid-tier participants, with broader access expanding over the coming weeks. Every step requires identification, proof, NDA compliance, and absolute discretion. This is not hype. It is the culmination of long-planned monetary restructuring. The reset did not arrive loudly. It arrived correctly. Monday, August 10, 2026, prepare for your GCR exchange/redemption appointment. Jazara show in, have 2 photo IDs to present at your exchange, count, organize, and have copies of your currency and/or ZIM. Write down a password to identify your personal quantum account. If you plan to immediately purchase a large item, for example, a home, have specific details ready for a proof of funds letter. 2. For humanitarian projects, prepare 2 copies of a 3 to 4 page write-up of your project, 1 to give, 1 to keep. Be ready to provide a short summary and a 5 to 8 minute presentation of your project, details about your project's duration, 20, 50, 100 years, to determine payout, the number of people your project can employ, the amount of funding needed for the first 90 days. Monday, August 10, 2026 Quantum Financial System goes live, Cabal Wealth seized, global currency reset in motion, quantum satellites and military-guarded nodes secure the greatest financial revolution of our time. The Quantum Financial System, QFS, is no longer in testing, it's here, actively running, exposing and recording every elite move as it rolls out globally. The countdown to full-scale launch has begun, and with it, the world's financial landscape is about to change forever. Transition to the new financial system. Sunday 9th of August. 2026 Global Financial Reset and Asset Seizure underway following recent tribunal disclosures. Emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to the exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London and New York are under direct audit as authorities unwind decades of illicit funding used to sustain global operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates and pharmaceutical fronts are facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system is accelerating, backed by asset-based currencies designed to eliminate debt-based manipulation. Old banking rails are being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts are scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, transaction ledgers and digital forensics will be released simultaneously globally to ensure full transparency. This is the systemic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity is collapsing. Stay informed and verify all updates through secure channels. This video is reposted from the blog. Monday, August 10, 2026 QFS deployment updates. Since the start of the year, QFS has been in beta trials within select regions aligned against the global cabal. These test areas now experience instant, secure transactions bypassing traditional banking, feeding data into the quantum ledger that's invulnerable and transparent. Over 100 million real-time transactions daily pass through QFS, each transaction documented and tracked within the world's most secure ledger. Quantum satellites guarding the revolution. 13 quantum satellites, guarded by military alliances, now secure QFS's global network. These satellites, far beyond mainstream agencies like NASA, are developed by classified military contractors and form an unbreakable connection that shields data from hacking. Each transaction is encrypted, every byte safeguarded, ensuring zero vulnerability. Banks in turmoil, system glitches as QFS interferes. Since mid-July 2026, banks in key regions report technical glitches with frozen transactions and fluctuating balances. These are no random errors, they're the first signs of QFS challenging traditional banking. As QFS runs parallel to legacy systems, it exposes every inconsistency, revealing fraudulent transfers and artificial inflation schemes. The cabal's banks are scrambling, terrified by QFS's presence, which audits every move and shines a light on embezzled funds and manufactured scarcity. Countdown to Global Currency Reset, GCR. The Global Currency Reset, GCR, is on the horizon, bringing an asset-backed currency to replace fiat. Governments are already liquidating gold reserves into QFS, preparing for the largest wealth transition in history. Once this reset completes, fiat currencies will be worthless, replaced by an incorruptible system. Military oversight. Final preparations for QFS rollout. Military forces worldwide are securing key QFS nodes and testing sites, ensuring the system remains uncompromised. August 2026 marks a pivotal month, with special ops safeguarding regional hubs. This presence shows the stakes. If QFS fails, the cabal regains control, but with soldiers securing these hubs, the elite's last vestiges of power crumble. Prepare yourself, the storm will break with QFS. From Sunday 23rd of August, 2026 the QFS is no longer a test, it's the dawn of transparency, accountability, and freedom from cabal control. The countdown has begun, and there's nowhere left for the elites to hide. The quantum financial system is here to end every lie and deception ever used against us. On Monday, August 10, 2026 breaking, the four portals of the quantum financial system, QFS, USA, European, UK, and Asia-Africa-Australia portals, are set to connect and transform the world. Discover how these portals will bring transparency, asset-backed currencies, and global financial freedom, ending deep state control. The Quantum Financial System, QFS, is here, set to forever change how the world handles money. The era of corrupt financial practices, hidden transactions, and deep state manipulation is coming to an end. The QFS promises transparency, security, and direct control over personal finances. The system operates through its 4 portals, gateways connecting the world's financial networks. This isn't just another financial overhaul, it's a transformation of the global economy. The 4 portals of the QFS connect continents and bring financial autonomy to millions. 1. USA Portal, the lifeblood of the Americas, covering North, Central, and South America. The USA Portal ensures connection to the QFS across the Western Hemisphere. The introduction of the US note, USN, an asset-backed currency tied to gold and silver, replaces the corrupt system centered around the US dollar. With this shift, the Federal Reserve's control over the American economy ends, marking the collapse of the fiat system. Impact on everyday people. The USA Portal will empower citizens from Canada to Chile with direct access to their wealth, free from bank manipulation. This portal brings unprecedented stability through the USN, an asset-backed currency providing financial sovereignty across the continent. 2. European Portal, reclaiming financial sovereignty, breaking free from the euro. The European Portal allows countries like Spain, Italy, France, and Germany to reclaim financial independence. Each nation will issue its own QFS-linked currency backed by assets, ensuring the end of financial manipulation. A united, yet independent Europe. Under the QFS, each country will manage its economy independently while retaining transparency and security. This shift means financial freedom for individuals and national autonomy, signaling the end of the deep state's control over Europe's financial systems. 3. UK Portal, a return to sterling strength. The UK Portal introduces the sterling token, an asset-backed currency restoring financial independence to England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. This new currency, supported by the QFS, ends Britain's reliance on the euro and deep state influence, with each transaction secure and traceable. 4. Asia-Africa-Australia Portal, a continental shift in power. Covering a vast area including India, South Africa, Australia, and all of Asia, this portal represents a seismic shift in global financial power. The QFS will support these nations with asset-backed currencies, promoting economic prosperity from their own resources rather than exploitation by external forces. Unleashing a new wave of prosperity, Asia, Africa, and Australia, once battlegrounds for financial manipulation, will experience newfound prosperity. This portal promises a future where wealth benefits the people and economies of these regions, free from external interference. The grip of the deep state is loosening as financial freedom becomes a reality. Monday, August 10, 2026. Global financial reset and asset seizure underway following recent tribunal disclosures. Emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to the exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London and New York are under direct audit as authorities unwind decades of illicit funding used to sustain global operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates and pharmaceutical fronts are facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system is accelerating, backed by asset-based currencies designed to eliminate debt-based manipulation. Old banking rails are being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts are scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, transaction ledgers and digital forensics will be released simultaneously globally to ensure full transparency. This is the systemic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity is collapsing. Stay informed and verify all updates through secure channels. Monday, August 10, 2026 update. New list of 209 countries that are connected to the QFS system or are being connected. QFS plus RTGS trust the plan. Boom. Today, we uncover the intricate web of banks that are now aligning with the QFS system. The QFS, or Quantum Financial System, has been the subject of much speculation, whispers in dimly lit rooms, and late-night conspiracy theory forums. Some say it's the future, while others claim it's just another fanciful myth. But what if I told you that 97 of the top 100 central banks are being covertly connected to this system? The world's central banks have long been seen as the puppeteers of the global economy, shaping the fate of nations with their decisions. Their influence is undeniable. But what happens when these behemoths of finance join forces with an emergent, arguably enigmatic, technological powerhouse like the QFS? Hold on to your hats, folks, because here comes the bombshell. Our inside source, a brave individual deep within military intelligence circles, identity classified for obvious reasons, has dropped a piece of information that might just shake the very foundations of the global economy. 97 of the top 100 central banks are currently under transformation to become fully operational under the QFS plus RTGS system. That's not all, the remaining 82 smaller central banks are gearing up for this transition. But first, let's roll back a bit. For those of you who've been living under a rock, or perhaps wisely distancing yourself from the maddening world of global finance and its shady undertakings, the QFS plus RTGS is the new kid on the block. It stands for Quantum Financial System and Real-Time Gross Settlement. In layman terms, it's a sophisticated financial network ensuring instantaneous money transfers without the usual delays. Why is this significant, you ask? Well, imagine the world where money flows without barriers, without time lapses, without the invisible hands manipulating the scene behind thick velvet curtains. A world where every transaction is transparent, well, to those who know where to look. This is the promise of the QFS. Boom. There are a total of 179 central banks listed by the BIS with about 80 more when counting regional monetary authorities among the 209 countries. All these are being connected to Monday, August 10, 2026 Military Intel. Global Strategic Impact, Starlink's military applications, RVs and Jazara, and the Quantum Financial System. Quantum Financial System Intel on Telegram. In this extraordinary epoch, we find ourselves at the crossroads of technological evolution and financial innovation. The convergence of the Quantum Financial System, QFS, Stellar Network, and Starlink satellite system heralds a new dawn, redefining the paradigms of monetary transactions and fortifying financial security across the globe. Quantum Financial System, QFS, the Fort Knox of financial systems. At the heart of this revolution is the Quantum Financial System, QFS, a marvel of technological advancement synonymous with unmatched security and transparency. QFS is not merely a system, it is a symphony of ultra-secure financial transactions, epitomizing the pinnacle of monetary protection and ensuring the inviolability of financial data. The revolutionary QFS leverages quantum computing to safeguard financial transactions and information, eliminating the vulnerabilities of traditional systems. By encrypting data with quantum technology, QFS renders unauthorized access and financial crimes obsolete, establishing a financial ecosystem impervious to external threats and securing the trust of individuals and nations in this new financial paradigm. Stellar Network, the prodigy of financial efficiency. Next, let's explore the Stellar Network, a prodigious entity that converges efficiency and inclusivity within the financial sphere. It is the linchpin uniting disparate financial systems, catalyzing seamless, cost-effective cross-border transactions, and fostering financial cohesion and prosperity. Stellar is the harbinger of financial democratization, offering swift and affordable financial services to every individual, regardless of geographical or economic barriers. As a catalyst for economic empowerment, it envisions a future where financial obstacles are non-existent, ensuring that secure and equitable financial transactions are accessible to all. Starlink, bridging distances, connecting worlds. Finally, Starlink emerges as a beacon of hope, bridging the digital divide with Elon Musk's ambitious constellation of satellites. This pioneering venture promises unparalleled internet connectivity, narrowing the digital chasm and making global communication a reality for every community, even in the remotest corners. Starlink's mission transcends geographical constraints, empowering remote areas and laying the foundation for universal financial inclusion. With this vast network, connectivity becomes a cornerstone of global financial security, enabling the world to embrace a secure, inclusive, and efficient financial future. The amalgamation of QFS, Stellar, and Starlink is not just a convergence of technologies, it is the manifestation of a financial utopia. This alliance forges a realm where security, inclusivity, and efficiency coexist, creating a new reality where every transaction embodies unparalleled safety, every individual benefits from financial inclusivity, and every nation contributes to global economic cooperation. Monday, August 10, 2026. Donald Trump's vision for Q phones and Jezar is more than a leap in technology, it's a global financial revolution. Powered by Stellar Blockchain, this plan redefines currency, communication, and power. Are you ready for what's coming? The Global Currency Reset, GCR, is more than whispers, it's a storm brewing in the corridors of power. Q phones are at the center, preloaded with Stellar wallets to connect directly to the quantum financial system, QFS. Imagine real-time global transactions without banks, fees, or delays. This is financial freedom on a cosmic scale. Trust the plan. The event Monday, August 10, 2026. There is going to be a big biblical scenario where they make out it's World War III, but really they are activating militaries then bombing all of these satanic Luciferian landmarks. Enacting Jezara funds and we the people rebuild. The event. It is biblical. What are some of the very big satanic Illuminati landmarks in the world? Q showed us them. Vatican, Buckingham Palace, White House GD in China. CERN on the Swiss/French border. Israel/Khazarians control CCP. The media etc. 34 satanic buildings and dams will fall. Rods of God/do. Worldwide planes and trains grounded, lights/power switched off. Changing over to Tesla free energy. Bitcoin server/data center hit and turned off for good. 99.5% of crypto gone. China coins. Enter ISO 20022 coins backed by precious metals. World War III scare event. Nuke sirens, water event, stock market crash, global martial law, Castle Rock scenario. Julian Assange. Quantum systems. Project Odin switched on. Nizara/Jezara/RV election flipping via military courts, FISA. Military Tribunal/confession/10-day movie, 3 times 8-hour sessions. 10 countries will be running EBS to cover the whole world. Reveals. Inauguration. The Israeli Mossad control the world's media out of the U.S. Attached is Q1871 outlining this. Project Odin as mentioned by Ron Code Monkeys is a powerful anti-deplatforming tool. Project Odin is part of Quantum Starlink. Our new quantum systems are to be protected by secret space programs out of the cabal's reach. Q2337 tells you Mossad media assets will be removed. Think people like Alex Jones. Israeli intelligence, stand down. Media assets will be removed. This part of 2527 tells you that something powerful is going to knock out Mossad media satellites. This will black out the media worldwide, switch us over to the quantum systems. This is Project Odin. All in all give the reason to activate the military EBS. If you look up the Turksat rocket that launched from the USA in January you will see it was specifically for military comms to people's TVs and radios in Africa, Middle East, Europe and Central Asia. The event has many facets to it. The worldwide blackout to change over to Tesla energy. Knocking out media satellites, QFS, rods of God on dams and 34 buildings and much more. 34 buildings will be in the event. They are very significant. White House, Royal Castles, Buckingham Palace, Vatican, Getty Museum, Playboy Mansion and the like. This will surely make the stock market collapse as will Precision Cyber linked to Executive Orders 13,818 and 13,848. It is all a show. Swapping from Rothschild central bank notes to rainbow treasury notes now backed by precious metals, not oil/wars, are we still comfy? Or are we scared? A little bit of both is normal. Trump keeps his promises. Have faith in the Lord our God. He will comfort you through the storm. Who saw in January up to 10 countries at once have their power all turned off by the Space Force. Just before that Israel had that happen for 30 minutes too. If they can turn 10 at once off altogether, they can do the whole lot. Welcome to Tesla. Blackout necessary. Have a look at all the global military exercises now being put in place. It's all happening in front of you. It's the largest global military operation in planet Earth's history. Transition to Jezara/greatness. Now they just have to play out a fake World War III scenario to ring sirens in every national military command center. This is to justify to the whole entire planet many things that have been taking place already. The fact that Jezara military law has been in place. The secret military tribunals, confessions etc. the executions the lot. And like all militaries normally do they will help build new things. Monday, August 10, 2026 Black Swan events, massive cyber attack pending, global financial collapse happening now, China, Germany have experienced financial collapses, banks closures, Markets down, Bitcoin stopped trading. Q Monday 10th of August 2026 Global Military Command authorizes nationwide emergency broadcasting overrides to transmit 10 days of hidden documentary evidence and confessions directly to all public screens, Tier 4B ISO 200. The emergency deployment of Space Force communications relays to lock down secure quantum channels and block corporate media censorship entirely. Mass seizures of underground medical facilities and subterranean transit hubs across North America and Europe by combined special operations forces. International banking consortia and central ledger systems confirmed completely offline as the full transition to asset-backed currency protocols takes effect. Over 150,000 sealed indictments unsealed simultaneously across federal districts, triggering immediate asset freezes and executive detention orders for international corporate titans and compromised media executives. Sunday 9th of August, mass cyber blackouts neutralize corporate data centers and deep state communication backbones. Global intelligence alliances have confirmed that secure military tribunals are now in session around the clock. The scale of the documentation recovered from secure servers ensures that all involved actors face immediate prosecution under war crime jurisdiction. Citadel protocols remain active worldwide. Civilian governance structures are replaced by direct operational command to maintain absolute public security during the systemic dissolution of the old elite class. This is the turning point. The network is deconstructed. Stay plugged into secure channels for continuous disclosure logs as the new paradigm unfolds. Global Military Alliance initiates full seizure of mainstream media broadcasting networks and corporate news headquarters to implement emergency truth transmissions. Massive military sweep across elite private islands and subterranean facility networks confirms complete neutralization of rogue operations and underground human logistics nodes. Interpol and Global Military Command execute simultaneous raids on Central Intelligence black site archives, recovering decades of hidden financial records, blackmail vaults, and direct order logs. International shipping hubs and port authorities placed under strict military quarantine to prevent high-profile elites from escaping via private maritime fleets and diplomatic aircraft. Over 80,000 military police and special operations units deployed across major financial and political capitals to secure critical infrastructure during the ongoing global transition. Monday 10th of August, full deactivation of global satellite communication backbones used by corporate, Tier 4B ISO 20022 on Telegram. Allied command structures confirm that the asset recovery and trials infrastructure is operating at full capacity. Compromised executive boards and corrupt political figures are being transferred directly to secure facilities. Emergency quantum broadcast networks are prepared to stream unedited evidence logs and witness testimonies across all intercepted channels worldwide. The final phases of the systemic restructuring are unfolding. The old paradigm is gone. Maintain secure communications and monitor verified channels for live updates. Monday, August 10, 2026 Global Military Command authorizes nationwide emergency broadcasting overrides to transmit 10 days of hidden documentary evidence and confessions directly to all public screens. The emergency deployment of Space Force communications relays to lock down secure quantum channels and block corporate media censorship entirely. Mass seizures of underground medical facilities and subterranean transit hubs across North America and Europe by combined special operations forces. International banking consortia and central ledger systems confirmed completely offline as the full transition to asset-backed currency protocols takes effect. Over 150,000 sealed indictments unsealed simultaneously across federal districts, triggering immediate asset freezes and executive detention orders for international corporate titans and compromised media executives. Sunday 9th of August, 2026, mass cyber blackouts neutralize corporate data centers and deep state communication backbones. Global intelligence alliances have confirmed that secure military tribunals are now in session around the clock. The scale of the documentation recovered from secure servers ensures that all involved actors face immediate prosecution under war crime jurisdiction. Citadel protocols remain active worldwide. Civilian governance structures are replaced by direct operational command to maintain absolute public security during the systemic dissolution of the old elite class. This is the turning point. The network is deconstructed. Stay plugged into secure channels for continuous disclosure logs as the new paradigm unfolds. Sunday 9th of August, 2026 Boom. You can't make this up, and if you are still reading the mainstream headlines thinking it's just random noise, You are missing the whole operation playing out right in front of your eyes. Let's talk about what just landed on the global radar, creating total confusion and weird panic on the public feeds, and tie it in with the real architecture shifting under our feet. Suddenly, all the big feeds and emergency channels were ablaze with strange panic narratives, promoting wild tales of sudden global banking freezes, high-security grid alerts and massive institutional lockouts all occurring simultaneously across international hubs. The mainstream talking heads are scrambling on live TV, feeding the masses completely fabricated distractions to explain why entire legacy frameworks are suddenly locking up or going dark. They call it system upgrades, routine maintenance or sudden technical anomalies. I call it what it really is. The ISO 20022 hard cutover. What the general public does not understand is that these sudden digital blackouts and institutional freezes are the direct result of the new messaging standard completely displacing the old dying Swift nodes. Behind those locked doors, the whole global financial matrix is moving over to the ISO 20022 compliant rails, locking in the asset-backed reality once and for all. They aren't fixing bugs, they are pulling the plug on the old debt system to make way for the quantum financial system. And right next to this massive migration, the operational pressure points for Tier 4B are coming to their absolute boiling point. While the mainstream press is screaming about random economic anomalies, the private redemption and exchange structures set up for Tier 4B are quietly completing their final system syncs in the background. The appointment scheduling protocols, secure routing links and verification nodes are lighting up, meaning that the long-awaited instructions are getting ready to drop for the internet group holding the physical asset-backed currencies. Every time a major legacy node freezes, every time a banking portal goes down unexpectedly, every time the media frantically spins a new distraction, another layer of the corporate fiction crumbles away. The transition is no longer some distant theory, but rather is pushing its way through the physical infrastructure right now. Wake up to what is really going on. They can try to cover it up with corporate spin and digital smoke, but the basic architecture is being rewritten from the ground up. Keep your eyes wide open. Stay locked into the reality of the ISO and the Tier 4B deployment, and watch how fast the old world collapses under the weight of its own lies. Sunday, 9th of August, 2026, Obamacare was established for child trafficking. The plan was to steal your children. What we think we know as of 2s. August 11, 2026, Monday, 10th of August. 2026, breaking alert, Trump turns the table on Iran. Tehran wants compensation. Now Trump demands Iran pay for Americans killed and wounded. Monday, 10th of August. 2026, White House bombshell, epic Game of Thrones video declares the Capitol restored, Trump reclaims Washington with order, power and American pride. Monday, 10th of August. 2026, U.S. debt clock breaking news, $40 trillion alarm, U.S. debt clock blows past the historic mark as America's debt train isn't stopping. Monday, 10th of August. 2026, breaking special report, J.D. Vance could cast the deciding vote. Randy Fine reveals 2 Senate paths to push the Save America Act across the finish line. Monday, 10th of August. 2026, explosive report, Trump just gutted the entire program. Boom. Monday, 10th of August. 2026, huge Trump victory, Senate confirms 74 nominees in 1 vote. Now the Save America Act battle moves center stage. Why Monday, August 10, 2026. In 2018, Rockefeller University scientists learned to remotely control human body cells. A patent filed in 2018, attributed to Rockefeller University, describes the use of tiny artificially created particles, called nanoparticles, which can be directed toward certain types of cells, either from outside the cell or by being inserted inside. This technology enables remote control of cell functions. The patent also describes the use of the heat-sensitive protein TRPV1, sometimes called the capsaicin receptor in the body, because it reacts to heat in the same way the body reacts to spicy foods, like chili peppers. The technology works by attaching specially designed nanoparticles to certain cells. In one study, scientists implanted specially designed cells in mice, which had been engineered to release insulin when activated. The cells were equipped with thermosensitive channels and tiny iron oxide nanoparticles. When the mice were exposed to a radiofrequency magnetic field, the nanoparticles heated up and activated the cells, enabling them to release insulin. The researchers found that this reduced blood sugar levels in the animals without surgical intervention or implantation of electrical devices. The patent also describes experiments with brain cells linked to the reward system and eating behavior. The scientists claim that the technology could remotely activate certain neurons in the midbrain and hypothalamus, areas associated with appetite, motivation, and dopamine signal transmission. In other experiments, it was shown that researchers can remotely activate certain cellular functions after exposing the animals to radiofrequency waves. Although this technology, as described, could potentially revolutionize healthcare, many have already expressed concerns due to the connection with the Rockefeller family. In theory, this technology could be misused for neurological or behavioral purposes. Monday, August 10, 2026. Massive deep state infrastructure exposed as global energy and communications grids transition to secure. Covert deep state subterranean facilities and encrypted data servers have been compromised and secured by joint intel units. These sites, previously used to run mass surveillance and manipulate global narratives, are being dismantled piece by piece to cut off all remaining control channels. Top-tier architects of the old corporate media matrix are being removed from key positions as global broadcast networks face emergency seizures. Declassified communicator logs reveal decades of coordinated censorship and psychological operations directed at suppressing alternative technologies and free energy innovations. The rollout of advanced Tesla-based power grids is accelerating behind the scenes, designed to render obsolete the centralized, high-cost utility monopolies. Localized resonance harvesters are replacing the fragile, debt-ridden grid infrastructure to ensure permanent energy independence for all sovereign regions. Secure satellite hubs are now fully active, replacing compromised fiber optic backbones with quantum-encrypted data streams. This new independent network will host the upcoming unfiltered archives, exposing every hidden contract, illicit patent suppression, and covert operation run by the cabal. The takedown of the centralized information and energy monopoly is complete. The new freedom infrastructure is live. Stay vigilant and keep watching the secure channels for the next wave of deep state declassifications. Sunday, 9th of August. 2026. Obama's shadow operation to destroy Trump and the United States itself. Edward Snowden. Obama quietly established a shadow opposition government, a network of radicals and corrupt power, a coordinated machine built to sabotage Donald Trump and the U.S. itself from day one. This was first conceived through the Obama campaign in 2012, and then turned it into a 501c4, to hide their donors, through a radical Alinsky-trained group that Obama founded called the OFA, or Organizing for Action. These are the deep state's radical foot soldiers. This shadow network of criminals consisted of over 30,000 radicals embedded all over the country. These are professionally trained criminals, more sophisticated and ruthless than groups such as Black Lives Matter and other right groups causing chaos all over the country. These professional criminals and agitators are schooled in Alinsky's rules for radicals tactics from a program that lasted 6 weeks, which over 32,000 foot soldiers have attended, with another 25,000 that were training at the time to directly work for the deep state to take down Republicans, conservatives, the United States, and the Constitution itself. OFA and the Obama Foundation were the fronts for these operations, which he proudly advertised, and then planned to merge both of these foundations together, along with the DNC. Then they get the proprietary database of the voters from OFA, the email list of millions of Obama supporters, and add the donor lists on top, which then creates a superstructure. To top it off, you also have some of the leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities, which then creates an unprecedented shadow cabal with Obama at the top to take down Trump and the United States itself. This is what was being created and doing the bidding of Obama and the globalist deep state cabal itself. Once you see the big picture, you start to finally understand what we are truly up against and are fighting to save this country. They've branded me a traitor. History will call me a hero. Stay in the know. ZB. Monday, August 10, 2026. In 2018, Rockefeller University scientists learned to remotely control human body cells. ZC. Monday, August 10, 2026. Do you have to have a social security number? Guyana IRS free since 1999. The social security number was created in 1936 for one purpose: to track earnings to calculate old age insurance benefits under the Social Security Act of 1935. Take note that this came after the orchestrated crash of 1929. Create the problem, sell the solution, good old government. It was never designed to be a national idea, and yet here we are. Get your real ID or you can't fly !... which is a lodge. From 1946 to 1972, the card itself said not for identification. I'm old enough to remember that. Here's what most people don't know. There is no federal law that requires a citizen to obtain a Social Security number. Enumeration is voluntary. The Social Security Administration has acknowledged this in its own publications. The entire thing is a complete propaganda campaign. The IRS adopted the SSN as the Taxpayer Identification Number in 1962. The Tax Reform Act of 1976 opened it to the states. But does that act apply to you? Judy note, the IRS is a privately owned by the Cabal Corporation. In 1986, Congress required an SSN to claim your own child as a dependent. But did filing apply to you? A number created for a ledger became the key to employment, banking, credit, and licensing. But is it the law? No, it's the perception of the law. Banking: do you know foreign nationals can get bank accounts with their passports and other ID? But an American? Only by jumping through hoops that nobody tells you about. Know the history. The intent of a law is very important. Many of them come from lobbyists who know the right people. Know the difference between what the law requires and what the system demands. Do you have to participate in the system? Likely not. I figured it out back in 1999. It's legal fuckery. Want to know more? Text 1776 to 954-775-8524. What's most pressing on your mind?
Hold your peace. Hang tight. The moment's coming. Think of, again, Moses is out there and there's people screaming at him from the audience, from the crowd around him. Why did you bring us out here? Pharaoh and his army are coming at us. Look at that cloud. It's a great cloud of dust coming at us from all the chariots. And Moses says, hold your peace. Yeah. The people that are coming after you after today, you'll never see them again. God will provide a way. The river, river hadn't even been parted yet, okay, for them to go over onto the other side in safety. Moses had to turn, walk over to the riverbank, raise the staff, and then the water parted like a wall on either side, and they crossed on dry ground. What's interesting about that, by the way, just so everybody here knows, a little detail. It says they went across on dry ground. They went across on foot with all the people. And as they're crossing and just getting across the river, the chariots are bearing down on them. They come racing into the riverbed, and the wall of water is still held up on either side. As they got out into the middle of the river, they started to get into a problem because their chariot wheels went down through the top surface, which was dry for the children of Israel as they crossed, but it cut down through that upper layer and began to cake up with mud. Their chariots got bogged down with mud as they came across. Then as the last of the children, because these things are bearing down and they're coming on them, but it gets slower and slower and slower and slower because they got bogged down in the mud. When the whole of the Egyptian army, not part of them, were fully in the river and caked down with mud on their wheels and couldn't get out of the way, and the people of Israel had just crossed into safety, the wall came tumbling down, just like happened at the Jericho. But here's the wall of water on both sides, inundated them and drowned the whole Egyptian army. Something similar is about to happen here. Those people that have been coming after us through election frauds and chasing us down right down to the last second, we have the data. We know how they're doing it, how they've been doing it. We have the people that have a good grip on it. We have way more intricate detail worldwide than a lot of these people understand. And as we get down to our midterm election day, I believe that the plan is to pause it and then start the process of arrests, starting with the Russia stuff and then moving through other areas. And by the way, I mentioned to you, John, when you were here with me the other day, the latest data that I've been monitoring was provided to me by friends concerning all the federal district courts around the country, 56 of them, because you have territories besides the states, just a very small number shy of 500,000 sealed indictments when you add it up between all the courts over the last several years that are still active. Just shy of 500,000 sealed indictments sitting, waiting to be served. This is many, many, many times the normal number. This is unbelievable behind the scenes. Now, the sealed indictments can be for all sorts of things. It could be immigration frauds. It could be election stuff, gangs, whatever. Each indictment isn't just one person. The indictments can have between 1 and 99 named persons within a single sealed indictment. And these have been heard by grand juries. So this is an astounding number. This isn't just some rogue prosecutor or group of prosecutors doing stuff, some secret, star chamber situation. This is all relatively in the open by grand juries, which meet in secret as far as their actual proceedings, who have handed down these indictments because of the fact that there's ongoing investigations. Just like if you had a drug or criminal cartel of some sort doing something, and you maybe get one guy on murder, but you don't want to spill the beans before you get other people that may have been involved. You seal that indictment while you're continuing to bring the charges against the rest to fill it out without spilling beans. Well, to have almost 500,000 sealed indictments, if you had, let's say they're not 99 in every indictment, but maybe an average of 10, well, that would be 5 million people under indictment. Is that immigration fraud and things like that? If you had the full 99, every single one, that'd be 50 million people, under indictment. So there's some wild aspect to this. Is it some small portion? Look, if it was, half of the 5 million, if it was a quarter of the 5 million, you're still talking about 1.5 or 1.25 million people on those indictments. If you were just having 2 or 3 people in indictment, so 4 people in indictment, it's an astounding number no matter what, and that still hasn't been served. They're active. They're not there for no reason. They're holding till the critical moment when they can be served in mass. Well, the reality is that there's so much here that we will probably be even still involved in war crimes trials 10 years from now.
Okay.
There's a lot of work that has to be done here. And then again, like I just mentioned, we're nowhere close to the worst of the storm. Mm-hmm. I've Cuban Missile Crisis type events in there also. We've got one of the most critical things in here is the reset of the cell phone system, which has been weaponized nationwide. So we have a lot of technical things that can't be rushed through, and a checklist that has to be gone through to make America safe again, and to see justice served, even in doing a military component, which is absolutely the only way to get America's election system and economy back on track correctly. We're in a wartime environment, even if you don't know it. We're already in a national security emergency that has been declared, but most people have failed to recognize that it's still ongoing, back to the initiation of it on March 13th of 2020 by President Trump, that we would never have gotten control of our elections ever again. Once that got in place, you wouldn't have a legal context in which to own and control your elections. It really was, in Star Trek terms, a Tholian web of containment being sewn around the whole world, that in order to once completed, we wouldn't be able to break out of with the technology individually that we have. So this is that moment where we break out of this web and then take control of the situation once again on our elections, on our money, what constitutes money, our economics, and one that's not very widely seen. What makes the world go round? Energy. And this attack on America to choke us down to where we didn't have access to our energy supplies and could function, including this reindustrialization of America, this coordinated attack on energy production and supply routes. That's one of the things we'll be covering at the summit here in September, and the fight back. You may have seen, I think I showed it to you yesterday or day before when you were here, the president issued a order that increased the oil production off the coast of California by 550% under the Defense Production Act, and ordered that oil go into the pipeline system, which takes it through El Segundo, California, the refinery there, to keep enough energy, refined energy, oils, fuel, gas, for military purposes. But it also assists on the civilian side. Now, was a very partial thing, and there's more to come. Northern California is in an extremely dire situation, and most Californians really don't understand it. The rest of the West Coast really doesn't understand it. But the shutdown of the major refineries in California is being because of regulations the California government has put into place that are just, bizarre, uncalled for. They're looking at shutting down, essentially half the refinery capacity in California. You're facing a situation where, in a matter of months, and this isn't just being, this isn't hyperbole. If you remember, you're just old enough to remember, a little bit of a kid, but just barely old enough to remember probably when we had the gas lines and then went to odd, even days to get gas back in the mid 70s. And I remember hearing the Saudi oil minister when everybody was going after the Saudis on oil production and blah, blah, blah. And he says, the problem in America isn't an oil production problem. Quit looking at us and the pricing like that. It's a refinery problem. You're not refining enough gas for the public. And, that's your real crisis. And that was totally true. We're coming into a refinery crisis across the country. And when you push refineries and don't do scheduled maintenance for various reasons, keep them going, put too much pressure on any individual refinery, that's when you get huge fires. They're talking about taking out half the refining capacity in California. The remaining refineries, to keep up with demand, they start bypassing checkpoints for maintenance and service, or they themselves have to shut down with no backup capacity to fill the gap. It affects the whole country. Right now, a couple of the airlines are taking jet fuel from the East Coast and bringing it to the West Coast just to keep enough jet fuel to keep their aircraft operating from LAX and other airports, because the refinery capacity is being shut down. This is a monstrously huge crisis that affects the whole country, because as you bleed off those stocks off the East Coast, now they're in a more precarious situation just because of California has gone out of their minds. So we'll be talking about that during the Storm Summit. But you could end up with $10 gas very easily in California, plus odd even days. Brace yourselves. There's stuff that can be done. The president, I think, has started to address it 2 days ago with the Defense Production Act. being enforced on this, and I think there will be other layers to it. But for all the ranting and screaming that may come from it, this is a huge national security issue, especially as we come back into the reindustrialization of America. And for example, shutting down the Valero plant. These refineries are orders of magnitude more complicated and in some ways riskier even than a nuclear plant. There's certain things you do. We run refineries very well all over the world, just fine. But you don't just turn them on and off like a spigot. In fact, when Valero is very close now to where once you've shut it down past a certain point, and they've been ordered essentially to shut down, you can't restart it. In fact, you could come back a year from now and say, well, we decided to go ahead and run Valero and let's go start it back up. You have lost the infrastructure, personnel and equipment wise. It won't be able to be restarted. You'll have to go start another plant somewhere else completely. It's a very complex operation, and the institutional knowledge, et cetera, the supply lines, the function, the personnel, you're not going to restart it. It's gone forever. This is a national tragedy. It's a regional tragedy and cannot be allowed to go forward. But the fight that's going to be involved can only be resolved at this point with something from the president related to the Defense Production Act. And that needs to happen very, very quickly. So we'll be addressing that at the Storm Summit and let others weigh in on it as needed.
We got these things on the docket. We got a pardon, and then challenges of the pardon because of the Otto Penn presidency, and then we have a contempt of Congress potential charge from Rand Paul. My question to you is, which is the likely path to bringing Fauci to justice? And in Juan's crystal ball, how long will this charade play out before justice is served?
Well, let me say it this way, John. As satisfying as it may be for many to bring some kind of swift justice in these matters, the reality is that we don't do lynchings in a just system here in America. And in fact, let's just talk strategy. When you're doing certain things within a legal realm, sometimes the correct action is to hold while you develop your case before you bring in your, pivotal star witness or something like that. Now, Fauci being questioned before Congress is pivotal, and it started to break this illusion for many, including many of the people that had at some point supported Fauci. The wizard has, the curtain's been pulled back.
Yes.
But there's still a lot more to be played out that just isn't quite yet understood. And so having him there dangling for a bit, allowing the spectacle to develop to, allow the diners to assemble, if you will, is not a wrong strategy, because much of the country still, they view people within this audience as being, over exercised on things, over exuberant on many things. And while you've been vindicated in many ways, there's a long ways to go towards full, real vindication. I don't just want a feel-good moment. I want justice done.
Yes.
And Fauci didn't do what he did in a vacuum. There are many, 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 many people who operated with and benefited from the actions of Mr. Fauci. And more importantly, he was somebody's tool in their toolbox. He wasn't there of his own volition to affect the vote. He was a tool in somebody's toolbox to be used to create a circumstance within the sports community. These were people that would suffer from this shot even more than otherwise healthy people might. And that's been the case. I was mostly concerned with military age people and trying to make the case indirectly that the military personnel can't and should not take the shot. Many didn't. Even under incredible pressure. Get over it, figure it out, operate accordingly. And that's what's going on. We're about to see this whole thing escalate. We're up to temperature for the most part. Manifold temperature pressures are correct. We're going to move out onto the flight line and get the go signal, and we're going to be taking off here shortly. And it's going to be epic. Brace yourselves. But it's not going into a category 7. We're only at the election time. We're only in a category, 4. In the interim, enjoy life.
With the election, the probable election delay, moving beyond November, in your crystal ball, is that a few weeks, a few months, a year? And why?
Well, the whole point.
Why?
The whole point in pausing the election is because there's been election interference. That's what the president was talking about 2020, that China flipped our elections, interfered in elections, and successfully flipped it. Biden didn't win the election. Biden didn't get more votes than Obama. These frauds have been in place, electronic ballot, and even the propaganda. There was testimony from Google execs that just by changing the way the search engines access information within the Google system, Google alone could potentially flip 15 million votes according to their own internal analysis. That's just Google. We're coming into an AI world. Information's getting thrown all over the place. People go after shiny. They don't dig deeper than what somebody just said. Well, this is what happened. You got to believe this. And then other people come in and sift through it. But unfortunately, they come to it late. The election's already happened. The deed is done, the October surprise type stuff. So in this era that we're coming up into as a world, if you don't get elections reined in, election processes reined in now, this Tholian web of containment gets completed, and now you'll never get away from the globalista, the oligarchs, controlling who gets in power, how the money gets spent, how you're controlled and put under the thumb of some global cabal or groups of cabals, and thrown into war after war after war after war to bleed off your young people and their creativity. You're the cannon fodder, not their kids, and take over the world. We have to get the election processes reined back in, and then simultaneous, not separately, but just a half step behind, we go after the economic side. Honest elections, honest money. Those are themes that we'll have within our presentations here at the Storm Summit. And of course, let's go back to 9/11. 9/11, whether you grasp it completely now or not, was about its own role in controlling the election processes, the environment, the atmosphere of how you go about things, creating Homeland Security, which, we had CISA over at Homeland Security, supposed to protect us on the digital vote frauds. They did nothing to protect us. In fact, everything they did helped to ensure that those thefts within the electronic side continued unabated. When we get into justice being served, many of those people are going to have to do some answering, just like Fauci did. It's going to be gruesome for them because China's all through this. This isn't just mere hyperbole by Trump about China interfering in the 2020 election and beyond. We haven't even look, I mentioned to you privately over the past couple of days, I think I took calls while you were there. What's happening right now, almost unseen, unknown across the country, a number of investigations have been moved to a different level concerning campaign finance and the origins of the funds going into the campaign finance for offices all through the country. Those investigations are getting ramped up pretty quickly, in part because you had private groups who did a tremendous amount of work looking at the usual suspects and some of the minor suspects around the country. Just one operation run totally privately in a major state that I've been aware of for the last couple of years. They've got like 30 binders identifying key people, key operations, focused around one of the largest counties in the country, and then out through the networks into and out of that location to adjoining operations within the state and other states and its flow of funds. As the investigators, multi-agency investigations have been put in place, literally several of them on the same day as the president presented to the country. They're looking at the origins and flow of campaign finance money. That's different than the vote specifically, because what does a campaign spend that money on primarily? Well, it's the propaganda to go with the candidate. It's the advertising. And where's the advertising done? Well, a huge percentage of it is in the mainstream media and the sub-outlets that have agreements with those main, media that have the licensing. Why is that important? Because hearing the ad, even the way news stories are conducted and interviews are scheduled, gives certain people weight and momentum that other people can't compete with. In fact, in one of the specific things that we've been working on over the last several days, I think lawsuit's going to be filed tomorrow on one specific matter. Other candidates within this state said, if we don't take this money, we'd never get a chance to be in office. Oh, really? So you have to take foreign money to have a prayer of winning the election because you want to do good things. But if you don't take that foreign money, you don't stand a chance, and it would go to somebody else. So you do something wrong because that way at least you get into power. And you save your family and blah, blah, blah. The way I couched this to the people involved, I said, so in other words, in order to get 2 U.S. senators in a low population state, you're willing to take this outside money, which over 50% of the money, well over in this one particular race, came from outside the state. And most of that money that came from outside the state actually has foreign sources going back to China, specifically China. So literally Chinese operatives funnel money into campaigns locations here in the States and then flow it out to specific campaigns they want, of which in this particular state's case, till the suit's filed, I don't want to say, as the candidate said when we talked to him privately about this, well, I wouldn't even be able to get into office. I didn't take this foreign money. So it's in essence, you have to take this money, you have to prostitute yourself in order to stay alive, stay viable. They're going after the senators, all the other positions, governor, secretary of state, attorney general, and down the list, other locations, all the way down to city council and dog catcher, are gravy. The key thing is to get a couple of senators. If you can get the money in the right places, get the right forced prostitution in the right places, to get a couple of senators in a half dozen states, you affect the U.S. senators, you affect the whole country. And then the governors, secretaries of state, attorney generals are like pieces on the chessboard to protect those players. But you got the senators, which blocks the money, which is the most important, or allows the money to flow to chosen people, locations, etc. The U.S. Senate's the key. And so there was an active campaign run precisely out of China. They gamed it out. They looked at the big board. They said the best way to control America is to control the senators. And if you control the campaigns for U.S. Senate and the money going to the right people to get those people in office, the easiest place to do it is low population states out in the West. And then you affect the way that House and the Senate operate. Remember, the SAVE Act was passed over at the House several times. At the U.S. Senate, for all sorts of bizarre reasons, the Senate just wouldn't pass it. It's inexplicable. This happens over and over and over again on numerous subjects. So the Senate's really the key. Controlling a half dozen low population states because it's less expensive. The cost for advertising, the candidates, everything else is much simpler, clearer, easier. And to propagandize a small percentage of the population, you're going to get everything. We're going to take care of you. We bring home the bacon every day. Cheap date. And that's what's happened in these Western states that are low population. And so we have to go back against that. In fact, you'll see some of the pushback beginning even over the next several days with things going on there, which ultimately goes to campaign finance. The other foot that really hasn't fallen thus far with what the president presented concerning the attack on elections through the vote and the vote machines and the false ballots now goes to the campaign financing. And by the way, Singapore is deeply involved. Players out of Singapore are deeply involved in this. When we looked at the fake paper ballots that came into the country, they came through Singapore first and then went to the West Coast up to Vancouver, BC, and then down to Tacoma, Washington. They came in on the East Coast through Baltimore, and but they came from China to Singapore first. When we look at other of the operations, including the financial, Singapore was a key choke point before it went out to other operations like FTX, this falsehood down there in the Silicon Valley that was a pass-through for election finance fraud and money laundering. So this is going to be a developing story that'll develop very quickly. It won't be years to develop. It'll be over the next couple of months and in court filings and like that. So, we're moving from, where people, well, why isn't this being done? Why isn't that being done? How come they're not operating quicker? How come the president this and that and the other thing? Deep breaths. Hold your peace. We're moments from these next triggers beginning to get hit. And anybody wants to say, oh, yeah, we've heard that before. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, okay. Well, you AIs that are saying that, you won't have long to wait. The midterms are a specific date. We're literally just long weeks away from that. Watch and see. Then you can criticize all you want. See if I'm not right. So anyway, hope that answered your question. I don't even know where you were on the question. But.
Would it be a fair summarization, Juan, to state in part that those previously elected that have made their ways to the ballot were done perhaps in a fraudulent manner? We don't have our voter rolls in order, even though the president sort of requested of all the counties to do so. We don't have proper protocols in place to conduct free and fair elections, and therefore they're going to be suspended, delayed for a period of time. Would you say 3 to 6 months or 9 months to a year? What's your best guess?
Well, I guess that was the question you had,
Yeah, it's okay.
before I went off on my rant here a moment
No
ago.
problem.
It wasn't an executive request. It was an executive order. The president issued his 107th executive order March 25th of 2025 at 1:07 in the afternoon, signed. And that ordered that the county clerks around the country, under the supervision of the Secretary of States and governors of each of the states, would clean up their voter rolls, duplicate voters, uh, uh, um, people that aren't authorized to vote because they aren't U.S. citizens, etc. That they clean up those voter rolls, and they had 180 days to do so by 25 of September 2025. How many counties around the country had successfully cleaned up their voter rolls? 0. They would make statements, oh, well, we use ERIC, which is to look at legitimate voters versus people that aren't supposed to be there. Questionable operation at the very least. But nothing was changed of any substance at all compared to 2022 or 2020. Okay, the voter rolls are still corrupted. You're not going to get to an honest election. Then you've already held the primaries and sealed in who the candidates are in many places. So you're not actually going to have an honest election because you haven't even had an honest primary. You could do a perfect election at this point in time, November 3rd, 2026, and it would still be a fraudulent election because the people that got on the the ballots got there through election fraud and mischief in many cases. And it doesn't have to be every election in the country. It only has to be certain places. And it still violates the civil rights of people on the other side of the country. Because if you have, for example, a state or a couple different states, handful of states who are operating fraudulently to get, let's say, U.S. senators into the U.S. Senate through election mischief and fraud, then they can gum up the works of the whole country with just a tiny handful of senators from a couple of states. And now your senators that you brought in from your state are nullified. Okay. You got 100 plus senators, and then you have, a certain percentage are always going to vote, one way or with the current administration, etc. You throw a half dozen, oddballs in there, you throw off the balance, you can't get anything through. You gum up the works. And of course, the spending happens on the Senate side. The proposed spending happens on the House side. And then it has to be approved on the Senate side. So just like what happened with the House with the SAVE Act, got vote, positive, get to the Senate, not happening. So now you have a pause. Let's say I'm right, and that the president decides to pause the midterms. And a number of fairly significant folks have come forward and agreed with me that the president's going to pause the midterms. It's conceivable that he would wait to act before they take office at the first part of January of 2027. But I don't think that's going to be the case, but it would be for cause because of the information within the elections. But I think, and anybody that thinks they know exactly what the president's going to do is full of shit, because he's not telegraphing precisely his next moves. He's preparing you that something radical is about to happen, but he's not telegraphing that. A couple of the voices that are significant and actually talk to the president pretty regularly, I mean, once or more a week, have said they believe that the president's going to pause the election sometime late August. I would say that that's personally highly unlikely. Have lots of love for the people that are saying that. Got it. Good guys. I think when you look at what's going on, that from their standpoint, because that would be the easiest for the country, it'd give us the most time to prepare ourselves for How are we going to get this under control, etc.? No. He's going to let them continue to commit the crimes, and in fact, even get the early voting started. I don't think he stops it till the tail end of October 2026 at the last minute. Don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. Is that open to discussion? Absolutely, because nobody knows with precision exactly what's going to happen outside of a very tight circle around the president and the president himself. So take a deep breath. Logistically, I think the setup is aimed around a late October pause. Could be all the way up to when people take office, although I personally think that's highly unlikely for a lot of logistical reasons, but we don't know. When that happens, if you say the objective is to right the wrongs that would happen if you had the election on time, what wrong is already in place? The election's already fixed. You can't fix the November 3rd elections because it's already fixed. You've already got people on the ballot through fraudulent primaries that aren't the will of the people, through ballot fraud and election techniques fraud that, they're on the ballot for this fall. If you had an election on time, you just seal the deal. Even if you only paused, let's say, for 3 months and then went forward and got a perfect election, you would do it with the existing candidates that made it through to the general election right now. You wouldn't be taking out the primary stuff. So the reality is that doesn't address the underlying condition that we're already in. It's much more fundamental in what's wrong. And those fundamental things, the way the election is conducted, the voter rolls, which are corrupted and haven't been fixed so far, couldn't get fixed in 180 days. Well, they're going to fix them in 180 days after he pauses the election? Probably not. So my attitude on this whole thing is, and there is nobody on the outside of the specific plan that knows with precision exactly what's intended. But when you game this out, you don't have to be that much of a rocket scientist to understand. A lot of the people that are on the ballot currently, in the course of the pause and arrests related to some of the other subject matter and heading for election integrity, are going to shuffle the deck on the entire ballot as it exists or will exist by the time we get to October. In which case, you have to allow another opportunity for people to decide who may not have wanted to run for office because they knew it was just a shit show, that may think again, well, maybe I will run this time. So you have to have room for them to do the mental evaluation. You have to allow that a number of the candidates may be removed from contention or think again, do they really want to run for office? And some of them that got blocked out by the frauds to date would go for it again. So when that happens, they've got to have a fair shake at getting a little money, running a fair campaign, going through the primary process, and then getting on the general ballot and have it run again. Could you do all of that plus the necessary arrests and reset of the systems in fundamental ways, moving away from the machines and going to a hand count paper ballot counted where cast? We're not putting the ballots in the trunk of the police car, not having the firemen carry it in their boot to the election counting center. Counted where cast. Nothing leaves the building where you're casting your vote. It's all under constant surveillance. And then do a count and one day election with very, 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 very thin opportunities to vote remotely for very well documented reasons, the people that have to vote remotely, and allowing the military's vote to be cast remotely and brought in play in a timely manner. There's a number of logistical things that have to be worked through, which can be done, but they aren't in place right now. So with all of that in mind, could you push back the elections 1 year? That's probably at least realistic. In reality, though, I don't think it'll be a year. There's always been in place a undercurrent of moving the elections to the spring and not the fall. The date we use in the fall right now, Farmer's Almanac and other things, that's the date that is what they call the slaughter day. That you don't want to keep alive till the next year to continue to breed, grow, etc. We want to move them to a different time of the year, and I think that could be part of what's in play here. So, would we hold the paused election like we just pick up right exactly where we left off? No, because you got to correct the problems from the primaries. So you need more months. Do we do a compressed opportunity to get on the ballot, run a campaign, get in the vote, get through the primary process, get on the general ballot? Yeah, could very well be the case. Might actually be healthy. Could you hold those elections in a year? I think you could. Is that the ideal time? Or with everything in play, would it be better to hold it back, say, a year and a half? I think that personally, that would be better. A year and a quarter, now you're in the dead of winter, hurts certain parts of the country. I don't think that's fair. So I think there's some discussion, trade-offs, everything else about when that could happen. You may have to run some special elections because certain people are going to get taken out of office within the criminal arrest complaints, etc. Or they may want to step out of office because they know what's coming. So that could be in play. And there's other stuff in play. Brunson case is DOA right now. It's sitting on the shelf. Could that be revitalized? We're actually in the process of something that could put it right back front and center, but hasn't yet. Nobody should get ahead of the game. Don't be skipping around, get skippy on us as though it's already done, because it isn't. Don't tell me what's going on it. I know as much as anybody, and it's not being acted upon in any way, shape, or form, so cut the bullshit. But we do think that there is a valid angle that revives that relatively quickly. Is it in play? Not quite yet, but we're close. We'll see what happens. So my personal best guess, once we pause, it's a year and a half. The date of the pause, I think it's that last week of October. I'm on record saying that. Could it be sooner? Absolutely. Could it be later? Yes. How sure am I that we're going to see a pause related to the implementation of whatever happens on the midterms 2026? I'm in the 99.99999 percentile. And for cause, it's not just an arbitrary, educated guess completely. There's some questions on the timing, and the president, his team behind him, within the military component, are not telegraphing with precision exactly what they're going to do. So take a breath. We're all in this together. Is the storm going to Category 7 in the next month? No. Is it going to Category 7 in the next 3 months? No. You might think it is when he pauses the election, but we're not to the worst of it because there's other things in play globally, including overturning elections for half the peoples on planet Earth who have people in power over them who are not the will of the people because of election fraud. This is a much bigger deal than just the United States.
Thank you very much. But folks, category 3 to 7, you have all that we just heard about the delay, the pause in elections, and what will need to take place to restore that. And you've got all that happening among other battles we're fighting, and that comprises your 3 to 7 in the category 7 in 2027. Juan, I want to ask you about President Trump. We discussed this. I'd like you to bring it to the forefront on this broadcast right now. In 2016, we had a victory. In 2020, we had our election stolen, but you'll comment on that. Commander-in-Chief operating in part out of Mar-a-Lago. We have 2024 victory, and now the president's messaging 2028. What's happening with that messaging, 2028? And is President Trump a second, third, or fourth term should he run again? Which would it be and why?
Well, of course, I've passed around a lot. And by the way, credit where credit's due. The person that really pointed this out the most effectively first, I was aware of it, but hadn't really pressed hard. Professor Clements made a big deal, a couple of the presentations all the way back to last February at the bond conference that I did, which was all private, was not public, down there in Nevada. I had about 100 of the top people in the country on some of these issues come in, and we had a conclave concerning this. But he pointed out this meme, which President Trump showed, I think, literally at every single rally that he did, showing that the immigration crisis reached its lowest point of illegals coming into the country in that mid to late March period of 2020. It also, in the lower right-hand corner, it says that President Trump's lowest approval rating was also in this time. But in the lower right-hand corner, something bizarre. It says President, or that Trump resigns the presidency, and it has an arrow that goes up to exactly that area there at the tail end of March of 2020. Trump resigns the presidency. What's that about? Trump resigns the presidency, really? And yet he went all the way to January 20th, 2021 as president. So pretty wild to say that, he's not operating as a president, unless you look at it in the light that I've described to your listeners. President Trump of the country and puts on his commander-in-chief hat, which, is military and is aimed externally at threats foreign, not domestic. Now, what he told you when he did the state or the address to the nation the other day on Thursday night was that China had attacked us. So a attack on elections by international law is a weapon of mass destruction. It is categorized exactly the same as a nuclear bomb, a chemical weapon, a biological weapon. These are all weapons of mass destruction, including digital, by the way. A digital attack is a weapon of mass destruction. We've seen several attacks on pipeline systems, which could cut off the flow of oil and gas, and people in portions of the country that rely on that for heat. You could literally have people dying from these cutoffs of energy supply that are done remotely, digitally, and attacks on our energy infrastructure, electricity grids, pipelines, all sorts of things. So a digital attack is technically, if it's waged from a foreign location by foreign actors, even if there's collusion by domestic actors, it is the use of a weapon of mass destruction, which then triggers national security responses. In placing the country in a national security emergency, as he did March 13th of 2020, and then building that out, this meme saying he resigns the presidency is actually accurate. Trump never had it removed. If he didn't want that said, why didn't he have it removed from the presentation at all these rallies he did over and over and over again, including when he had these Patton-esque type presentations. He would walk off the back of the stage at the conclusion of a rally at a couple of these locations, and the curtains would be pulled back. He'd walk down the steps like the scene in Patton, and they would. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to. Apologize, I can't block out calls, and I had an incoming call here, so had to send it to outer space. But he would walk off the stage at the back of these presentations, and what you would see was an American flag, just like in the movie Patton, except for one thing: the stars were blacked out. Now, the reason that's important is because it's a warning in the language of flags, the language of semaphore, which I've told this audience and many others, the president is using as his communication system to patriots and to other countries. Right there in the open. All presidents have certain things that their friends and buddies know. This is how I'm going to communicate secret messages right out in the open. Trump's is the language of flags. In the language of flags, blacked out stars mean you're in occupied territory. Don't trust anyone. Don't trust anything they say as being genuine. Challenge anybody and beware that you're in occupied territory. You know, they breach the gates. They're on the ground with us. How many traitors have been exposed, treasonous persons, un-American persons, over the last several years as this drama is played out to the public? Many, many. And so Trump, while he appears, based on what he said, he resigned the presidency, has been operating as the commander-in-chief. We're already in a declared national emergency. And by the way, by the laws that were invoked when he signed that national security emergency, Congress has 365 and a quarter days to overturn and revoke a national security emergency, which the president would declare moving into the commander-in-chief role. National emergency. If Congress, with a 2/3 vote, both by the House and the Senate, a 2/3 or greater vote, if they haven't revoked that national security act, they cannot, in the interest of protecting the country, and until he stops the national security emergency, it stays in play. Biden couldn't dismiss it, end it. Congress couldn't after that 365 and a quarter days. So the only person is Trump, or if he's not alive or functional, then the three generals that run the NORAD Cheyenne Mountain system. It's actually 100 facilities or more. But the primary is Cheyenne Mountain in our nuclear deterrent response and beyond. So when Trump does what he's about to do regarding elections, it's not declaring a national security emergency. It's enunciating, clarifying, expanding it to include stopping false election. And so with a potential crime against the people, sealing the deal on fraudulent primaries and like that. So when he does that, it's just an extension of an already existent declared national emergency, and nothing Congress can do can stop him because that's already passed. That's why when we say trust the plan, you have to understand there's aspects of it that aren't fully understood, even by very connected people. And when he did that, it was still during his first term in office. His first term was interrupted with all sorts of mischief, including the Russia stuff, and trying to impeach him and move him out of office. The reality is he wasn't able to actually govern appropriately as his elected position would allow him to do because of this interference, both domestically with frauds, with the Russiagate stuff, and globally with the China interference and like that, and interference including in the upcoming election. Therefore, if he decides to run again 2028, wouldn't be his third term. It would be his second term, because even this last election, 2024, was held in an environment where we're in a national security emergency. And there's other aspects of it that he didn't concede the first election. He didn't agree that Biden won. He didn't give up the nuclear command and control, which I've talked extensively about previously. So with all that in mind, even this latest election is theater and staging while we got to the right position to do the rest of the fight back. But I thought, I understood, but everything, they said this and that. Yeah, you're in a wartime condition. Deception is part of war. Get over it. Okay? Get over it. Including to our enemies, even friends internal. And many believe the propaganda. We probably would have had a civil war already had he done certain things. So he had to try and give people the understanding, we're Nazi-occupied France. Operate accordingly while we fight back to get to a position to actually physically engage and have a prayer, other than just guerrilla actions here and there to thwart their activities. You are in a wartime condition right now. That's a fact.